Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 248. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. We're at the C2E2 comic book show. Our mics are fired up and ready to go. I'm drinking a caramel macchiato while firing up my vibrato. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of you-know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, we're at C2E2. How's your convention experience been so far? It's Saturday morning.
Oh, God, we've been having a ball here. Great Friday, a lot of high energy, had some fun, and had some good comic chat, and just general absorbing in the atmosphere. You can kind of tell it's early morning, so the people haven't come in yet, and there's already an energy in the room, so this is getting ready to be ramped up. This should be a fun time.
We're celebrating 5 years of Raging Bullets, and I really want to thank all the listeners who stopped by the table, people who we've gotten to have chats with. It's really been just a very cool convention for us, and we really appreciate you a great deal. So if you stopped by the table at any point in time and said hello, or if we met you in panels and things like that, it was just really nice. Because I was in the DC Nation panel, and a couple listeners in front of us stopped by and said hello, or turned around and said, "Hey, I recognize your voice from the show," which is always flattering to me that people recognize us in that. So I mean, it was really, really nice at this convention to be able to have that kind of community aspect to it, and it's great to see everybody. So we really appreciate you. This episode, we're going to be doing some comic chat and also talking about some of the panels at C2E2. We're going to be doing a series of episodes recorded from here, the next couple. And we have something special planned that I'm going to try to release midweek. And more details will be on the website. I don't know if we're going to be able to record that or make that work, but that's something we're working on. I don't want to say anything now, but keep an eye out on the website because there might be something coming actually on our anniversary if everything works out. So we'll tell you more about that on the show this week. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Once again, we are at C2E2, and we want to thank show sponsors, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. Remember, with DCBService.com, not only can you pre-order comic books, TVDs, trade paperbacks, anything that you're looking for, comic-related statues, action figures, things like that, DCBService.com is your pre-order source. Over at InStockTrades.com, if there are collected editions, trade paperbacks, whatever you're looking for, there's a lot of comic book-related books that are also carried by InStockTrades.com. Be sure to check out our show sponsor, InStockTrades.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Warning, warning, danger, Will Robinson, spoilers ahead. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing on the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
We're never getting you coffee again.
Actually, I wanted to pull that one out because that was the very first goofy spoiler warning, the robot from Lost in Space. The first time I ever did it.
You actually have done that before?
Yeah, that was that was number one. That was the very first one I ever did. And I figured, seeing as this is our anniversary, I'd bring it back for, or we're close enough to our anniversary, I'd bring it back for...
Was it that intense?
Probably not, because I wasn't sure how it would go over, so I didn't really commit to it.
Yeah. After you did it, I'm ready to commit you. Let's talk some comics.
There they are, all alone, except for that old character.
Brightest Day number 22 came out, and
yes.
Oh, what an issue it was. I guess I didn't realize, I knew that it was going to be Firestorm versus the Anti-Monitor. I didn't realize, though, that this would start to be a resolution to the Firestorm story arc, at least moving forward.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, actually, because we've been seeing a lot of these storylines with the people coming back starting to come to a close, see their inevitable conclusion. This also leads to the path, though, that not necessarily everyone has to die with what we see in the end of this one. I know I'm jumping ahead on that, but I think this has been the thing we've been talking about all along. Do all of these characters need to die in order for their thing to be fulfilled? There seems to be some alluding to the fact that Firestorm has a bigger role in what's coming, because he doesn't know how to use the Matrix yet and things like that. So the White Lantern obviously has something in mind for Firestorm.
Yeah, Firestorm definitely has, is going to be a bigger gun than he was in the past, and I kind of liked a couple of the scenes in here, where Ronnie actually admits, that, in the past he held back, he didn't do what he could fully do, and he's like, this is it, it's time to unleash.
Well, it's not just it's since he came back to life.
Yeah.
Which is the huge distinction there. He's saying, I'm not the Firestorm I used to be. And this is about him kind of accepting his own responsibility for what's been going on. That he's been feeling guilt and things like that since he came back. Because a lot of this kicked off with the fact that he still felt responsible for what happened to Jason's girlfriend. He still remembered that. And the two of them kind of coming to terms with, the own abrasive nature of their relationship. It hasn't been a perfect union at all between the two. I wouldn't have called it a friendship before now.
Yeah, and definitely this issue, you see really cool usage of these two together. If Firestorm continues in the universe, I would love to see Jason and Ronnie working together and being Firestorm. And even how throughout the story they've been going through where they switch back and forth who has the lead. And I think that's a kind of a neat thing where when it's Ronnie in charge, he looks one way. When it's Jason, he shifts over and looks more like Jason. And I think that's a cool dynamic to bring to Firestorm. And especially if what is this nature of the Matrix, and is it something that maybe Ronnie can access it better than Jason, but he needs Jason there as the stabilizing element, or because we still don't know everything about what is the Matrix going to happen.
Well, to me, I think what it is in order for them to be able to go as far as they possibly can go and beyond, beyond what even they realize, I think they have to be united. They can't be fighting each other.
Yeah.
And we see this issue, the more that they're relying on each other, the more effective they are. I loved when they were working against the Anti-Monitor.
Yeah.
Ronnie had one idea on how to handle it, but Jason's own experience with, the whole hydrogen idea, let's make his helmet into a bomb to buy us some time. Realizing that Ronnie had said earlier, yes, I can outmaneuver them, but that's only going to last for so long. I loved seeing the interplay between the two. Actually, I don't want to gloss over this. I loved the Ronnie was here bit, that was still there from Crisis.
Yeah. When you're talking about where they worked together and made the hydrogen helmet, if you think about what they were told when he came back is he has to trust somebody, and it's that whole, they were basically told in the beginning they'd have to work together. Ronnie would have to blindly trust Jason, for him to accomplish his goal. And in here we see that happening. He's like, what do you mean? Just trust me. Okay, boom, and he does it. And I thought that was just a kind of a cool moment going back to when he first, came back, and the whole, how each one of them was given a different task and a mission they have to accomplish to get their life restored.
In discussions we've had on the show and also discussions from listeners outside of the show, talking more and more about this entity, the White Lantern, how it's not necessarily about being good or evil, it's the agent of life, it's this creature of life. I think that this issue really hits that home. That this isn't necessarily for sure a benevolent entity because of the way it handles Professor Stein.
Oh, definitely.
Bringing him back is not needed. It's not an option because he's not needed for what's coming ahead, which that's not a benevolent entity that's going to do that. So that's an interesting part about this whole thing. More of the idea of omnipotence and how it looks down almost on some of the people.
Well, and it's kind of separated from emotions. But the interesting thing I saw was it said it didn't need the professor, but with Ronnie's dad, not Ronnie's dad, Jason's dad, sorry, he sent him back, separated him from the Black Lantern, and sent him safely back home. So I thought that was kind of an intriguing thing. Why would he, take that extra effort for the Jason's dad, but not, the Professor Stein?
Well, he did address that and say it was because he was still alive, which there was no point in doing this with Professor Stein because he was dead. And that was his cold response to the whole thing. He was dead. I can't do anything else for him. He's dead. It was kind of more of a fate thing. Like, he's done, but in this case, I could do something for the dad because he's still with us.
Okay.
So it was an interesting distinction. So it's not an evil entity we see from that. It did, the White Lantern did something kind, but it doesn't, it makes definite distinctions as far as whether or not these things are necessary. Because it's clear this White Lantern could have brought back Professor Stein. It's choosing not to.
Yeah, definitely it has the power, and that makes me wonder later on, is Ronnie going to have the power to do it? Because what if, with this whole Matrix, with the true nature of the Matrix, and who knows how much power he's going to get up, he may have the power later on. We may still see the return.
I don't want to see that.
I agree with you completely. I don't want to see it. I say farewell to the professor. He seems like a nice guy, and I don't want to sound cold or callous, but story-wise, I don't want to see it, but I wonder if Ronnie's going to have that power, and if Ronnie will have to make that choice about maybe it'll be one of those things where, here's the deal. If you choose to bring the professor back, or do you choose to use the power for blank?
I don't want to see him put in that position. Are you talking about as a one-shot deal?
Well, yeah. I'm wondering if something like that's going to happen.
Well, I honestly don't have as much of a problem with that, where you're saying he's at a position where he could do it one time and that would be it, and he's facing. I guess I don't see it going that way at all. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if it were, there were a reason for them to say, hey, you've connected with the White Lantern for our mission or whatever, and you have one opportunity to bring him back. But if you do that, you're giving up this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
You're sacrificing this choice for this choice. I don't have a problem with that, because that means he doesn't have the power. He only has it because he was tapped into the White Lantern.
Exactly.
Is that the direction you're talking about?
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe,
I don't see it going that way, but if it did, I don't have an issue with that, because I don't want to. I guess what I was saying when I was saying I don't want to see him have the power, I don't want to see that to be an inherent Firestorm power, because I think that becomes very limiting. I don't want to see the character. I think anytime you give a character way too much power, you all of a sudden have made them very limiting. It's very hard to do anything with them. Firestorm, I think, is right in the right power set right about now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and these are just my thoughts. I'm doing that whole off-the-page thinking again, and I'm actually very happy that I'm doing this with Firestorm, because of all the characters, he was the one that I thought was a cool character, and I had some cool moments with, I saw those cool moments between Jason and John Stewart. I really like that kind of mentoringship that I saw when they were together, but I never really had off-the-page moments, and I'm starting, and I think it's just because we saw really great hero moments out of them that now I'm looking at this and, you know what? Maybe this is going to happen. Maybe this is going to happen. Or it could be, here's the other thing that just popped in my head. What if Ronnie's given the choice? You have this tapped into this great power. You can bring back these heroes, or you can bring back the professor.
We've talked about on the show many times which characters we'd like to see launched in their own titles. I do want to reiterate again, my preference out of this is they do another series like this at some point, post Flashpoint. I'm guessing would be the time to do it after that big event is going on, where they take characters who maybe have trouble sustaining their own series but are interesting and unique characters that add some color to the DC Universe, add some style, add some flair to the DC Universe. And this is a great way to spotlight them in these bi-weekly or weekly series, whatever route they want to go, and really give us a chance to get to know them, putting top creative talent on there. Every issue looks great, every issue reads great, and these characters are in big events that matter to this universe as a whole. So I want to see this again, this type of thing. I'm not saying it has to be the same type of story or even the same format, but this is what you do with these type of characters, because I love them all. I want to see more Firestorm after this. I was a fan of Firestorm, but what I love about this right now, he's involved in a huge, big event that could have a huge impact on the universe, because this White Lantern is not going to be done at the end of this series. This is going to be a concept that is going to continue on.
Now, here's a thing that I was, again, this issue completely brought this in my mind. What if Firestorm becomes the White Lantern? Or what if one of them, or Ronnie, or Jason, or something like that happens?
I don't see it being one of the two. If it was, it would be Firestorm in general. Meaning them. I guess I don't see that with those two being billed as this, with the Matrix and their power and things like that. I guess I don't see them putting the ring on Firestorm. I agree with you that it would be one or the other, and I don't see them separating the two, because it's kind of pointless to finally have these two come together, but then we're going to separate them,
right? If
that makes sense. So I don't see Firestorm as a union being the one that would be the White Lantern. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see who it's going to be. Did you see the solicits for the Brightest Day Aftermath series? I don't know if that's the actual title. I forget what it's called. But there's a mini-series that's coming afterwards where there's Superman and Batman on the cover. There's the shadowy figure of whoever the bearer is going to be of the White Lantern, and a shadowy figure of one returning hero who's not happy about it. And you see a stern look on Superman and Batman's faces about it. So it's going to be interesting to see who the bearer is and who this hero is that has an issue with the whole thing. I like that we don't know. Good. It was a good teaser because it shows that the resolution of this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I don't think that necessarily constitutes it's going to be a bad thing. But it does lead that not everybody's necessarily going to be happy about it or comfortable with it. Because you've seen the nature of the White Lantern, so whoever's going to bond with this thing is going to have to be somebody that's going to be playing similarly to the White Lantern's rules, or have to.
Yeah.
It adds kind of like a Spectre concept to it. Well, with the Spectre host having to deal with the nature of the Spectre, I wonder if this host is going to have to deal with the nature of the White Lantern. Because look what it's already been doing to Deadman.
Yeah, it's just driving him up the wall just because he's watching his friends come back and they work through their personal demons, they life restored, and let's kill him now. And that's one of the things that I've really loved about seeing Deadman and getting to know him, and that's why I keep hoping he doesn't become the bearer, because I want to see him actually have a life and have something positive and going forward. And I see the bearer of the ring is just going to have a terrible burden, and I think it's going to be one of those things where it's a gift and a curse at the same time.
Except I wonder if maybe if he finally completely embraces life and all that, if that will somehow push him to be able to handle that burden, to choose to handle. I don't know. I don't know. If he chooses to handle that or not. It's interesting to me because I think I was assuming very early on that it was ultimately going to be him, and now I guess I'm not so sure that it's...
Yeah, most of the time I've been thinking it's going to be Deadman, but seeing him with Dawn and just seeing him kind of embrace life, and I want him to have an actual existence after this is over, and it's not even just an existence in making appearance in comic books. I'm thinking of, Boston, my buddy, who I'd like to see him actually be able to live life. He's learning, what it is to have a life, have an existence, and, beyond just getting up and breathing, or even beyond being the dead man, just, him as a person. So it's a personalization that I have to this guy who I think, I'm like, I can connect and, make a connection with this guy and say, he's a good guy. I hope when this is all said and done, things are good for him.
What happens if Firestorm doesn't want to give up the lantern? Because think about this. He wants the professor back. I don't think he's done with that yet. Because he now knows that the White Lantern could.
Yeah.
And if you were in his position, this is your friend, father figure. Obviously at the end, the professor has this really emotional moment. You weren't like a son to me, you were a son to me. That was his dying words, fading out to that.
Yeah.
For Jason, this is a pivotal moment for him where this guy just says, and I love that Stein said to him, you made me better.
Yeah.
You brought me out of my head. You made me see the world in a different way. You made me, just knowing you, made me a better person. So, those are things where, those particular moments, I loved that.
Yeah, I don't see him giving it up without a fight, and the fight will be interesting because will Jason, side with him, and Jason say, okay, I got your back here, buddy, let's, fight this, or is it going to be a breakdown again? It was one of those endings where I was like, dang it, I want to know what happens next.
Moving forward, I definitely see the two of them being more linked, them supporting each other, because Jason's going to have to look at the fact my dad's been brought back.
Yeah.
How can I not? And you got to remember, Jason also has a relationship with Stein.
Yeah.
So, Jason's not going. It's not like Jason's a stranger to him. Ronnie's more of a stranger to Jason's dad than Jason is to Stein. So there's going to be a connection there. I think, Ronnie, touching on what you're saying, though, and agreeing with you, I think Jason has the potential to be the voice of reason in that whole scenario, maybe to pull Ronnie back a little bit.
Yeah.
My concern for the two of them would be, look what happened to Hawkman and Hawkgirl when they fought against the wishes of the White Lantern. But it does seem like the White Lantern needs them. Needs the Firestorm Matrix. So I don't see them going the way of Hawkman and Hawkgirl because their mission, so to speak, is not done. Which makes me wonder what's going to go on with Jade and Obsidian now.
Right. The one scene, a couple scenes that I want to make sure we do not skip over.
Sure.
Well, one is just opening 2-page spread where we have the Anti-Monitor, your power, White Lantern, it is now mine. And you just see this. This is one of those artistic pages where I opened it up, and I actually did do a wow on it because I really just, you see all the different Black Lanterns in the surrounding area. You see Anti-Monitor over the White Lantern getting ready to kind of try to feed off of it. This was a really cool art, sequence here, and I was like, dang, this is nice. And it was right at the beginning, so it was one of those kind of, bam, let's get rocking.
Also a pivotal sequence that introduces a concept here. First of all, the White Lantern was willing to put itself in that position so it could get information about the Animania universe. It also shows that the White Lantern, while we talk about it being like this omnipotent entity, it's really not omnipotent. It doesn't know everything. It has limitations, and those are things that it has to take into consideration. So this information gathering, obviously going there, has now made the White Lantern to some extent stronger because knowledge is power.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe! Okay.
I was going more the Schoolhouse Rock bit, but,
okay.
But it all works. That's one to grow on, you know.
Now, I don't remember the Anti-Monitor being this intelligent from the past.
Well, you got to remember, it was the antithesis of the Monitor. So the Anti-Monitor wasn't adult by any stretch. I think because it was the evil entity, I think we saw it more that way.
Okay.
But this was a creature that was able to take down our universe. The Anti-Monitor wasn't Godzilla, though.
Right.
That type of level. Whereas there are times where I remember him feeling that way too. So I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
Yet I do feel like this was the antithesis of our Monitor, so that this is an intelligent creature.
Yeah, and I like seeing that out of this. That was something that really I was like, oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Because it would make sense that he would have an intelligence. He would be able to formulate plot, and because when White Lantern goes in and sucks some information, the Anti-Monitor's like, hey, you can't go anywhere. I want to know what he took from me. And I thought that was a cool thing, knowing, he wants to know what his enemy now knows. Because this is his big battle. And to be honest, I'm wondering if we're going to see the return of the Monitor, if maybe that's what's in the White Lantern, if this is his enemy. If the Anti-Monitor is the enemy of the White Lantern, is the Monitor in there?
Well, is the Anti-Monitor the enemy? Because the White Lantern returned the Anti-Monitor to life. Why would you return your enemy to life? I don't get that. So I guess I don't necessarily... Now, I'm not disagreeing that is the Monitor a possibility here? Maybe. I don't necessarily see that as being the case here. Why would the Monitor bring back the Anti-Monitor?
Yeah, I don't know on that one. To be honest, I never saw
that.
Well, I never saw the White Lantern as being the Monitor until this issue, with his definite play, and just they're going back and forth and fighting. That's the only reason why I'm thinking it. And to be honest, I won't even defend that position because it's one of those. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just kind of throwing out there.
I guess
what if?
I guess I also don't see that the Monitor would need information about the Animania universe. The Monitor would already know that.
Gotcha. True.
So I guess I don't see it being that connection. I'm going to be honest and say I would be disappointed if that's what was happening, because I do think it would be far more interesting if the White Lantern, the person who's going to bear the ring and going to be, that is somebody who maybe we've already seen, and seeing them adopt a new role. So I don't know.
Oh, definitely. Now, the other scene I really wanted to make sure that we talked about, and this is another artistic scene, when Firestorm initially goes after the Anti-Monitor, and it's that let's do now. And this was just a beautiful page with I love just these the flames just flying out, and just the different waves of the reds, the yellows, and the oranges kind of blending. Really has a great fire effect. And again, this was another scene where, as I'm flipping through this, I stopped and said wow on the artistry, and I just had to comment on it and just say, ooh, I love this, man.
Yeah, same with me. It's a great issue overall. Yeah. It left me with a lot of interesting questions. Oh, there's something else you want?
There's one more that had me chuckling. It's when Firestorm grabs the lantern, and just Ronnie being Ronnie, he's like, "Hello there," and the lantern responds back, "Hello." I don't know. I chuckled at it. I thought it was just a kind of a little funny, little banter between him and the White Light.
Yeah, I do like the fact that the White Lantern's so vocal.
Yeah,
like if the White Lantern's asked questions, even if it disagrees with the other person, it continues to address them. So there's some interesting, and I think that could be something very cool with whoever winds up being the bearer, is seeing what that relationship is like between the two. Similar to what we see between the Spectre's a really interesting comparison for me. I don't want to see this be just like the Spectre, but anytime there's an entity and a host, it's far more interesting if you get to see how the entity's lack of humanity is often hard to deal with for the host, for the other person, in this case the bearer.
Yeah, and there's definitely going to be some growing pains with whoever becomes the bearer, and I'm definitely curious about that. I really want to see who it's going to be. And, this has been a great journey for me. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really digging this. It was funny because as I was talking about, the last time we talked about the Generation Lost, I said how Generation Lost was, my real linchpin. When I ranked the two, I was putting Generation Lost above. This was a great issue that I was like, oh man, how can I put that one above this one now? And I've been going back and forth on these two, and this is a fun, wonderful read, and I'm so glad we got this, that, the story didn't just end with Blackest Night, and that Brightest Day is going on, and who knows where this is going to end, the aftermath. Is this going to tie into the whole Flashpoint thing? Where is this going to go in the DC universe? Really excited for it.
We have 2 more issues of this, and I'm going to be curious to see more and more how Deadman deals with this. Whether he's going to become the host or not, he's got a lot to deal with at the moment because he's been hijacked. And how is he going to react to that? That leads me to a question with what's going on with Superman and Batman in that Aftermath issue. Is Deadman the one standing next to them, or is he on the other side?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Because obviously he's going to have a better idea than anybody what it's like to be driven by this entity, and that it's not necessarily a good thing. I'm very worried for the heroes that have vanished, though, because we've only got 2 more issues. So, and this thing does not seem like it's worried about bringing anybody back.
No, but he's got to. I can't believe that Hawkman is gone. Hawkman's gone.
I'm not saying that they're gone, like they're not going to come. That they're not going to come back. But I don't know that they're going to come back in Brightest Day now.
Yeah.
In 2 issues, it's a lot of resolution to come through. I could be dead wrong, but I do think I don't know that I'm 100% convinced that they're coming back in this. Or at least all of them, because they aren't needed. So if they were going to come back, why wouldn't the entity then bring Stein back? Why wouldn't the entity... I think Stein's death here has convinced me more and more that I don't know that those are necessarily coming back to this world. We'll see.
We'll see.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Batman number 708. This is the second part of that Azrael crossover, and this is written by David Hine.
Yeah.
So it's a special fill-in issue on this one. I'm assuming this means that he's going to write Red Robin number 22 then, I'm guessing.
It sounds like it, because this one leads, the story continues in Red Robin 22 at the end of it, so it would make sense that he would continue on the story there.
And this looks like it's leading into the ending of the Azrael series then, kind of wrapping up the storylines that have been in there, bringing back characters in this like the Crusader, who is one that I really enjoyed. We talked about how much we enjoyed David Hine's story with the Crusader, where this character was pulling from religious history all of these brutal deaths, which is very cool.
Yeah, it was all the powers of his powers basically. He could access how the different martyrs were killed, and he could recreate that in just this format. But even he had telekinetics, pyrokinetics. He had some serious kinetics, psychokinetic, telekinesis, telepathy, whatnot, powers throwing out there that made him a great, powerful villain and adversary for Azrael. And now we're seeing him in Gotham, which I thought was kind of neat, seeing how Gotham is this great big sin city, where it's a really seedy underworld of society.
What I love about this was we were just asking on a recent episode, one of our listeners posted this on the forum as well, that this was going to be the storyline where we were going to find out what happened with Dick Grayson getting the sword through him. I was wondering if that was going to play off at some point. God, I was hoping it would, because I always have seen Dick Grayson as a righteous, good guy character. What do you make of these visions that Dick Grayson's having of this prodigy from his past? Do you think that's real, or do you think that's something that's a fiction because of the sword? Is this part of his test?
Well, I'm thinking it can't be real, because Grayson, I've never known or thought of him as being this kind of guy who would torture, because he was
this is beyond, it's beyond being a bully.
Yeah, this was torture, downright. They were beating the guy, and it looked like basically because he was stealing his limelight and stealing his thunder, and now all the pretty girls won't want you. And as he's beating on this guy, I've never seen any type of story that would indicate that he did this. So is this a test for him? Did this not occur? Did he block it out of his mind? I don't know. It's what's going on here, and that's something I'm really kind of curious and excited about.
I wonder if this is, I think we all have choices that could lead us down potential paths. I think we have them throughout our life. I think it's part of the reason why we're human and, we can make mistakes from time to time. Have I made bad choices in my life? Yes. And I had the option during that time to make a good choice, which would have led me down a different path. Have I made good choices in my life? Yes. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to make better decisions. I think we've all had those moments, and they all lead us down divergent paths. So I wonder if this isn't maybe we're seeing a divergent path where Dick Grayson could have had this choice. Was there I don't know if there was a Prodigy. I'm guessing this Prodigy is a fictitious character because of what happened. That's what my hypothesis is on it.
Yeah, I'm leaning that way as well. But again, is this? How do you really? Can you test somebody by not something they didn't do, by something they wanted to do, or is it something that they could have done? But if they had been presented with the option, would they have done it? I don't know, and that's something I want to find out more about. And I like how when he was studying the bruise on his chest, that was the shape of the bat symbol, and he noticed the one, and even then he was using the scientific mind. He was identifying it's not a bruise, it's an entry wound. The exit wound's on the back, so he know it occurred, but he scanned himself, so he knows there's no internal damage. So this is something beyond just a sword running through his body. There's something else here. It's, in a way, it's a sword through his soul.
And I see this disappearing if he passes the test.
Yes, definitely.
I also wonder maybe what if the test is how he deals with this. If he continues to have these visions, which I'm assuming we're going to see wrapped up next issue, Red Robin number 22.
Yeah, Red Robin 22.
Unless it continues into Azrael, I don't know. If there's going to be another issue of Azrael, I'm not sure.
I'm actually thinking it's going to go Red Robin 22 and then finish up in Azrael.
Yeah.
I'm betting it's going to finish up in the Azrael book itself, and we'll see everything come to head with them finding the one righteous person in Gotham, which is a tall order.
I think it's going to be Dick Grayson.
I hope it's going to be Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he's approaching this as he's looking saying, I have to find this and I have to prove this. But what if that's the whole test? If he can let go on the notion that he is the righteous man, if he can actually look and find the true righteous man.
Like I said, I do feel that this is interesting in the sense that I wonder if part of the resolution of this is going to be that Dick Grayson, it's how he deals with this, how he deals with the responsibility of this. Not saying that he really did it, but he's going to be faced with this concept, and how does he resolve it? How does he take responsibility for it? What does he do to make it right? If that makes sense at all?
Yeah.
Because I can't see Dick Grayson, if he goes through this test and is actually faced with, well, I may have done this, not doing something to make it right. And that would be a path of righteousness too, right? If you did a wrong, correcting that wrong?
Yeah, seeking to try to make retribution for the wrong you
penance.
did. Penance.
I don't know. It is interesting. Now, this Crusader, what do you feel about his whole MO? Like, killing people. He almost killed not only the family that was in there, but the baby as well and things like that. I mean, Catwoman ended up coming in and saving them, but she does pose, and the whole group poses this interesting question about the Crusader. The baby was at risk, right?
Oh, big time at risk. And he really didn't care about the baby. It was, when God did with Sodom and Gomorrah, he killed off the women and children as well because they couldn't find one righteous person. It's God doesn't, in his mind, in his opinion, God doesn't care about that, and just, boom, destroy
So it's just
them all.
laying waste to Gotham,
Yes.
which actually kind of fits a lot of the end of the last issue of Azrael. It seems Michael Lane's concept is. I'm actually hoping that out of this, Michael Lane resolves himself as well.
I'm wondering if the righteous person that Dick Grayson has to find is Michael Lane, the righteous man that was Michael Lane, who first picked up the sword. I'm thinking he's been corrupted somehow, whether it's by the armor, whether it's by the fact that it was soaked with the Lazarus pit, whether it's the swords or everything he's dealt with. He personally has been corrupted, and it's Dick Grayson who has to bring that back, bring that out. Maybe we're going to see that these dreams and visions that Grayson is having, he didn't do. It's something that Michael did, I'm not saying Michael beat up a circus performer, but maybe Michael as a child beat up and bullied somebody, or kind of that way.
Is what's corrupting Michael what corrupted Dick Grayson through the content? Except why didn't it do it to Bruce? I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that to dispute you. I'm throwing out ideas, and I'm kind of more disputing myself in the sense of wondering. We saw Bruce stabbed with this sword,
and
nothing happened to him. So why Dick? What is the distinction?
And not only nothing happened to Bruce, he had the blue kind of flame piece. He was at peace really with it. So I don't know if part of me wonders if this whole thing is set up as Dick Grayson identified as being the person who will test and challenge him, or Dick Grayson was the one selected for the trial.
Yeah.
It's looking for the person who not only can find the righteous person, but the person who can represent humanity. And Dick Grayson can represent humanity.
Is that why Dick Grayson felt uneasy in this issue when Catwoman and Red Robin showed up?
Yeah.
He saw them as being back up there, but then saying this doesn't feel right in this situation to have them here. Is it because he's himself internally feeling this is his trial to go through?
I think so.
Because he's keeping Alfred out of the loop on this too.
Oh yeah, big time. And the opening sequence when he's dealing with the petty thug, and I thought that was just a great Batman scene. I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. And even the guy, he has him give the punch, and he breaks his hand on the armor. But as soon as everyone's away, he's like, that was stupid. As he's doubled over in pain, I was like, what's going on here? And then you see the emblem burned in him. This was a great play on a great late, just a one cool story, but visually, I really dig this one.
And it's Gilliam March, I think is how you pronounce it, on the artwork, and it's gorgeous artwork. This is a beautiful looking issue.
Yeah, I'm going to guess more of a G sound instead of a G for the Gilliam.
Now, what's interesting on this one as we continue going on is they go to judge Catwoman and Red Robin, and they get a temporary reprieve, but my feeling is that these two are not going to stop. Well, three now. Fireball?
Fireball.
Yeah. They're going to continue their onslaught on Gotham until the righteous person's found. And if there is no righteous person, Gotham's going to be burnt to the ground.
Oh, definitely. Crusader called down the Hellfire. That's the reigning fire, so there's going to be some huge ramifications. And it was funny because initially when Red Robin and Catwoman all immediately, followed by recommendations, said, hey, let's call for some backup, let's get some big guns, and Dick Grayson backed them off, kind of like that. So I'm going to go against my normal of call for backup and say I really like the story that it's these three pursuing this. Because to me, these are our Gotham defenders. These are our Gotham guardians. And I like that they're the ones going for it. And especially just the connection that, Tim and Dick have, I think is great. And even Selina with Dick isn't Bruce, but he is still a Batman. And there is still a level of respect and just a camaraderie dealing with kind of vibe.
With his relationship with Raven and the Titans, and that connection to the Mystic through her, he's a lot more open to that than Bruce is. They had those great discussions when Bruce became part of the whole Azrael thing, where Bruce was trying to put a scientific spin on everything, and Dick Grayson, it was kind of clear that Dick, has a lot more comfort with being open-minded to the magic end of things.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how he ends up resolving this whole thing. I do think more that we talk about this, it's convincing me that he is going to be the one that is going to be the righteous one. I can't imagine him not.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, but part of me is thinking in the back of my head that it's not him, it's somebody else, and he has to let go of the concept that it could be him. Kind of that whole he who is who thinks himself first shall be last, and who thinks himself last shall be first type of mindset.
But how do you explain then the wound with him?
It's part of
how is that going to get resolved?
I think part of his trial is that he has to let go. It's in a way a vanity, thinking that he's the only one who can save the town. He's got to look beyond what is just in front of him. He's got to expand it.
I don't get the point, though. I guess where are you seeing Dick Grayson implying that he is trying to take on this role of crusading and saving the town? I took it more as Dick Grayson's trying to deal with his own personal trial right now versus looking at what's going on with him as being him taking on the role of Gotham. I'm not disputing. I'm curious to see how you're seeing it because I'm not getting that vibe from it.
When I'm reading this, I'm seeing it as if he's taking it, saying that he must be the righteous man. I have to prove I am righteous.
But I take that as a personal issue versus it being a Gotham issue. or a town issue. I think he's concerned about his own where like he's been judged and found to have this darkness in him, and he's not accepting that. Do you see him needing to accept that about himself? Because I don't think he did this in a million years.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think it's in a way, a righteous man has no fear, has no worry whether he will be perceived as being righteous or not, because they know for a fact. And when you start sitting there thinking, am I righteous? I have to prove to this person that I am a righteous person. What's your motivation for proving it? Is it to, enlighten? Is it to motivate? Is it to inspire? Or is it to feel good about yourself, saying, see, I told you I was righteous? And that's what I'm wondering.
How do you see Michael Lane being different, though? Because you mentioned that Michael Lane seems like more like he'd be the one. And I guess I'm not seeing what Michael Lane is currently going through as any different than what Dick Grayson is.
And that could be the case. That's why I'm saying I wonder, because Michael definitely has been corrupted.
Yeah. But I guess going back to let me finish my thought, because it actually fits in this. Because taking it one step further, the one distinction between the two is Dick Grayson has this gaping wound that Michael Lane does not have from all this.
True, and actually, what we know, he doesn't have the wound. But I think there's something different. I definitely know there's something different with how he's looking at life and how he's reacting. And it's been since he came back. And especially because he's seeing ghosts and visions of people who are dead. Are they dead? Is it in his mind? Is it the spirit who's come back? What's the deal with all that? So,
my hope from this is, and this is all speculation as well, so you could be 100% spot on and I could be off. My hope from this is that we're going to see that Michael Lane's going to see the righteousness of Dick Grayson, and that's going to bring him back on board. Going to pull him away from Ra's al Ghul's manipulations and bring him back on board. Because I think the big factor here right now is Michael Lane, Fireball, and the Crusader are all being manipulated by Ra's al Ghul and put into this position, which is Ra's al Ghul's typical MO of cleanse the city, start over from scratch. This is a lot of what we saw from Ra's al Ghul in stories like Batman Begins, for example, of what he intended to do. The city can't be saved, let's cleanse it and start over.
Definitely, and it's whenever you bring Ra's al Ghul into the mix, you have a whole nother card being played. Could everyone be played against each other? I don't know, and that's something that I'm really loving about the Azrael story, and I wish this is something that would keep going because of just this mystery.
I would gladly follow Michael Lane month in, month out. I do hope that the resolution of this isn't that we're losing Michael Lane, that we're losing Azrael. I know we're losing his book, but I'd like to see the character appear from time to time because I love the Azrael concept. I think this has been very well developed. I think it's an interesting character, even if it's a character that we're obviously probably not going to see monthly. From time to time, it'd be great to see this character pop up again. So I am hoping that we get this resolution with it. Great story.
Oh yeah.
This David Hine, I got to commend David Hine on his work not only on here but on the Spirit series, which is coming to an end as well, because this is a writer who I've really grown to like with his work with this type of character.
Now there's one thing, the two art sequences I just got to comment on before we finish up. One, when we have the inner dialogue of Dick Grayson where he's saying, I need to pass Azrael's test. I need to know that I am a good person. They kind of do that close-up of the red-haired, looks like, I'm going to say, maybe homeless, maybe just regular person, normal, everyday person, kind of has the very sunken-in face. I don't think these are throwaway.
Is that the Prodigy?
I'm thinking that's the Prodigy. As an adult now, and we see what happened to him, and because of what happened, maybe did it actually happen?
I don't know. Well, we've seen the Crusader is able to create things that aren't really there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is this something where we're seeing that Michael Lane also has this power? Is it the same kind of corruption that's creating this fiction for Dick Grayson? Yeah. And maybe even this fiction for this Prodigy. Is it a real person, but then they're being pulled together? I just can't imagine Dick Grayson doing this.
I know. I'm like, and at first I was 100% thinking, okay, this has got to be. But when I saw that, really just now, as I was flipping through the page, I'm like, that's got to be. And so, is this a real person now?
How would you feel if Dick Grayson really did it?
I'd be shocked.
I would too.
And here's the deal. The thing is, he did this as a kid, so I'm a little bit more lenient and a little bit more understanding if he actually did this. Because, come on, we all as kids do stupid things. We all as kids learn, a different path, and who knows when this could have occurred.
to blank that out. How do you blank something like that out, though?
Traumatic, post-traumatic stress.
With what happened with his parents?
Yeah, maybe. Now, the other panel I really got to talk about is just that final panel where we see, Red Robin, Batman, and Catwoman going. The flames are kind of reaching behind them. It's that, classic hero final scene where they're walking towards you. I got to say, I really dig that.
Well, one thing I like is the color work on this, because the color flow works very well with their capes and with the whole city sequence. It really looks like they've got like this almost glow about them due to it.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice, it looks like it's something out of a film.
Yeah, and I got such a dun 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 kind of music going through my head as I'm looking at it. Just the big explosions and whatnot. This has got me excited. I dove into my stack to see if the Red Robin that I have out right now is 22. I'm like, no, it's 21. Because I am really chomping at the bit for this story.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad to see more of the characters bleeding over in each other's books. If they're operating in the same city, we should see them from time to time. It doesn't have to happen every issue, nor should it, because I like the single-focus Batman stories, Batman and Robin stories. But to see Red Robin and Dick Grayson team up from time to time is something that I thoroughly enjoy. This was a great issue, and I'm looking forward to the conclusion.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
I want to talk about Young Justice #2 and the cartoon in general. I want to commend the team of Art Baltazar, Franco, and Mike Norton for the fact that they were able to shift gears from what they were doing with Billy Bats and the Magic Shazam, which was tremendous, into this new series in a way that it captures the tone, the feel, and the style of the cartoon on television, yet adding something more to the comic, because these are great contained stories that feel like they fit into the cartoon, and yet they bring the animation to life really in comic book form.
Definitely. And this has been a nice interaction and just an interwoven a synergy between the two that I'm really enjoying. But this cartoon for me it's got a nice grit to it. I don't even want to say grit. It's got a maturity to it, but it's still fun. We have a great cartoon show that I'm enjoying watching, but it's not just some, marshmallow fluff. There's some real stories going on here, some real emotional exploration, especially, with Superboy, where he's going and just what he's dealing with, but it's not losing the fun aspect of what a cartoon about Young Justice should be, and I'm really enjoying that part of it.
Well, this is further proof that, kids, adults, teenagers, we all connect over the fact that, you take a look at a lot of your 3D animated films. They all have a lot of maturity in them, too, and can be watched on a lot of different levels. There's inside jokes for adults. There's stuff that's clearly made for kids. Yet, the whole thing, if you watch it together, can be enjoyed by families. I watch the 3D animated films with my wife. I don't need little kids there to watch them. I watch them because I enjoy them. Young Justice is a cartoon that I thoroughly enjoy. This is a comic that I thoroughly enjoy myself. It's wonderful for adults and has something for the younger sect too, which I think is great. And that we always talk about what is good bridging material for comics. How do we get kids to read the current comics? This is a great comic to hand kids and to branch them off when they're ready for the regular Teen Titans book, because its tone and style, I think these characters are spot on. You're talking about Superboy. Let's talk about his relationship with Superman. Oh my gosh, is that awesome. He comes out of this tube, or this facility with Cadmus where he's been raised, and has to look at Superman and say, what is this guy thinking about me? And I'm looking at him in awe. I want to be like that. I am his clone. I was meant to be a part of that. And yet, how does he view me? Is he threatened by me? Does he detest me? Does he care about me? How is he feeling about all that? And that would be something coming from the Superman end, too. You see that in those moments with Superman, where you get to see him reacting to this kid. He doesn't know how to react to him, which makes Superman feel very human in those moments. And yet it doesn't feel unlike Superman, which I think is the key. We do get to see those adult heroes.
Oh, yeah, and especially the scene where they're picking their rooms.
Yeah.
And that was a great time, because, Connor is going through, and he's spent his whole life in that tube, and it just in Cadmus and under being studied and all and whatnot. And so he takes the room that is kind of like a closet, because it's that nice compact thing. It's what he's used to. It's what he's comfortable with. And I thought that was a very, it was a kind of a comical moment, but again, it was another one of those serious moments where you're looking at this kid and you're kind of like feeling, oh man, I wish he could go out and just have fun and live his life. He's free, live it now, but he doesn't know how to live it yet. He needs to learn what it is to be alive.
One of the great things about this comic, and I'm enjoying this especially in issue 2, is realizing that they're taking the opportunity to expand the story when they can. I love the fact that when they're expanding this story here, they're taking that little creature that was with them in Cadmus and really showing, because I didn't see that coming at all. I kept, talk about a great swerve in this issue. I'm reading in the beginning, and the Joker's got a Joker present sitting there, which we knew from the end of last issue that the Joker was involved. And we've got Snapper Carr, and we've got Superboy sitting there. They've been duped by him. Well, it turns out this whole thing was a ruse.
Yeah.
I never saw. I kept trying to figure out, like when Connor started taking damage, I was looking at that the Joker did that attack with the little monkeys, the clown monkeys, and when the little ball's going by with the gas coming out of it, the little bomb, I thought that was what put a whack on Connor at that point. I didn't see it coming that, oh my gosh, this was his imagination. What did you see that as being?
I completely agree with you. I was thinking magic.
Yeah.
I was thinking that this was going to be the issue where they explain that magic can affect Connor. Maybe that's how Joker got in there, a little bit of whammy-bammy kind of mystic mumbo-jumbo wherever the Joker would get his hands on it. And I was thinking that the whole time. That's why he's like, he's bleeding. Why am I bleeding? Like, oh, he doesn't know magic. Oh, cool. This is kind of a neat thing going on. And I was completely sold. And then when Connor figures it out, I was like, oh my God, why? Oh, no, that's awesome.
Something that I've been enjoying about the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon, and then it carries over to this to, like, it's almost like Batman Brave and the Bold kind of launches into this as far as this seems to be to a next generation going after that. I like that it doesn't ignore the greater DC universe. This cartoon doesn't do that. These are supposed to be the sidekicks. These are supposed to be the kids that they were raised by these various DC characters, Batman, the Flash, all these other characters, and we're seeing them present in this book. Their mentors are here. Green Arrow's there, and having interactions with these characters. I loved Aquaman, seeing him with new Aqualad. It was great how, yes, they've had to make some tweaks and changes because you want to show that the relationships have been a little bit longer, especially with the new Aqualad, for example. But yet, even though they made little tiny tweaks, they haven't lost, like the new Aqualad is very clearly the Aqualad we're reading in the comics now. Clearly a little bit more mature, a little bit more seasoned, but not much.
Yeah, and again, it was like with the Aquaman and Aqualad, both of them kind of have a very regal presence to them. And I thought that was something I really enjoyed seeing because, Aquaman is the king of the seas, and Aqualad is his protege. He's learning directly underneath him, so he would have that same type of presence. And even in the show, when he questioned his, command, saying, "Hey, you're never doing this again," he'd be like, I apologize, my king." But he still had that reverence to him, but he still said, "No, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I got to do this my way."
The brilliant thing about the setup of all this, with when Flash goes to open up the present, Batman coming in saying, "No, don't do that." That even added more to this sense of, I was pulled into, and I'm a huge fan of this in comics, I was pulled into the whole dream with Superboy.
Yeah.
I felt like, because when I found the reveal, I'm like, oh my gosh, I rode along with him the whole way.
Yeah.
I was as duped as he, because he didn't know it, neither did we as the readers, and I thought that was absolutely a brilliant way to do it versus letting us know from the get-go that this was something that was happening. Going back and rereading it, you see that there were little clues that kind of gave it away, but I didn't, and I'll be 100% honest with you, I don't care how many times I would have read it, if I stopped at a certain point, I would not have known this was a dream.
Exactly.
Because of how well it was set up, and I loved how that played out. Especially with the use of, like, Martian Manhunter, reading the minds of the Joker, where you saw him have a reaction to the mind reading of the Joker. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, definitely. And it was funny because as this is playing out, as this is going through and I'm reading this, it wasn't until after everything was said and done, I had gone through the whole story, that something else triggered in my mind. In the cartoon, they talk about this event that caused them to leave Happy Harbor and go move to the Hall of Justice in Washington. We are now seeing what that traumatic event was. We're now seeing exactly what drove them out, and I thought that's a great way to actually bring everyone to speed.
What event actually drove them out?
I'm assuming it's the attack of the Joker, the fact that the Joker got in and was
This was a dream. None of them were there.
But this was a remembrance of an actual event that occurred there.
Oh, because it happened with Snapper.
Right.
I'm sorry. Good point. You're right. This was something where this creature was pulling from the file. So, because how else would the creature know about Snapper Carr?
Yeah, exactly.
How else would the creature know about these characters?
This actually occurred to the Justice League minus Superboy.
Right.
And so we're seeing I'm assuming we're seeing the big event that drove them out of Happy Harbor. And I thought that's a great thing. I was glad they went and did that. And, it's one of those, now you know the rest of the story.
I like that. I like that there was a history in this universe for these characters where they got to live that. You know what? I'm going to be 100% honest. Until you brought that up, I never saw that in the story. That's great, because that is something that's really neat that this Justice League existed. And then that gives a potential in the cartoon and in the comic to have these kids revisiting cases of the Justice League to show us some of these characters. And I'm glad that they're doing this. I'm glad that they're going there. Because to me, it adds more weight to these characters then, to show them dealing with things that their mentors did and showing how far they've come that they can. And the stronger they become as a team, the more effectively they can take down those problems that the heroes faced back in the day.
Well, and just talking about them developing as a team, that great episode where they choose their leader. And I loved that episode. One, I am a Robin fan, as we all know, and I love seeing how he was reacting. He was so used to being with Batman, where those two were completely in sync. Boom, you're presented with a situation, attack pattern alpha, you don't have to say what you do. Well, that's not how you lead a team. And he eventually, by the end, he recognizes that. And the team recognizes that they need a leader. And even Outglad recognizes that, you know what? Robin is a leader, and he will become a great leader of Young Justice. And, of course, as we know, it'll be, the Teen Titans, and it'll go on to wherever he's going. But I love seeing that, just that development of characters in the TV show. And I'm looking forward to seeing some reflection of that in the comic, because I know that's probably going to be coming down the pipeline. If you look at where they're kind of trying to time the comic as related to the TV show, there's some really cool stuff coming down the line.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I do like about the TV show is the potential. I'm hoping this is a TV show that at least gets a few seasons out of it, because cartoons have a limited lifespan, in the sense that they have a finite. And I'd like to see this one really explore more of who these characters are and their history. I'm particularly interested in watching the growth and maturity of Superboy. As time goes on in this, because that's something that I'm really digging about that character. Is we're seeing him every episode become a little bit more confident, a little bit more aware of the world around him. I like the idea that they're playing around with these kids, because they're teenagers having love interests and relationships, and who they're interested in is not necessarily like Kid Flash and Artemis is something that I think is great that's going on in the cartoon. I'm going to be curious to see how the comic handles those interpersonal relationships. Miss Martian clearly with Superboy is a
there's a connection,
I
definitely.
find super cool. One of the things that I really enjoy about this series, when we got to the middle of the issue, the revelation with Superboy, where he's looking at the elevator. Now, the transporter. I did know then. Like, the second he looked at it and started talking, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that everybody wasn't there. I knew that some of them were. At first I thought it was only the second wave of characters as they came in that were not there. Did you know it was everybody then?
Okay, I was thinking it was everybody, and what I was thinking was it was going to be another test of Martian Manhunter. And I was just thinking it was a training, and it was a test. I didn't think that it was the little widget from Cadmus.
That's cool. I love that when he threw Aquaman in, and you see that it didn't react or do anything. Now, I thought that was interesting, because the creature was clearly crafting this, but wasn't able to craft every little element of it, because you would think because he's working in his psyche enough that he could actually hurt himself, that he would be able to craft that the device would acknowledge Aquaman being in there. That was the little crack in it. Its world was only able to be crafted so far. There were limitations.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he was able to get hurt from it, and it's the whole, power of the human mind, power of suggestion. We've seen it in multiple TVs, like The Matrix, where if you die in The Matrix, you die in the real world because your mind doesn't know any difference, and that was a cool kind of element to it.
Yeah, well, I also wonder if part of the reason that he was able to crack out of it was because he'd been exposed to it for so long that maybe he recognized the distinction of what he was like when he was at Cadmus and going through it. I wonder if one of the other heroes, if they'd gone through it, would have been able to come out as easily as he did. Or if they would have been trapped longer because they didn't have his experience.
Yeah, mental discipline definitely would have played a factor. And just because the training and the mental discipline that Robin has, I could see him getting out of it faster than, say, Kid Flash. Just because, while he's a great guy and it's a very fun character, let's be honest, he's not the most focused at times. He could get pulled in very easily. Same thing like with Ms. Martian. I think she would fight through it in a heartbeat because the psyche and the psychics, that's her battleground.
I love that the gnome misses him, and that's what the issue was. There was something sweet about that. It kind of fit. We had this whole cool event, but then it pulls back, and there was something charming about that.
Yeah.
That at the end, it was kind of like, wait, you missed me? I felt his rage. I'm like, I would be angry too. But then this creature is a connection to home for him. Very similar to the fact that we see this kid going in the closet in the cartoon because, that is something that is home to him. This creature now, all of a sudden, he's connected with him like, okay, you also have an emotional connection because you were a part of Cadmus. And maybe in some way recognizing that the creature maybe is just as much a victim as he is.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the creature was going to stick around a little bit and be like, just like, hey, don't do that, okay, just let the creature learn how to live. Because that's another, like him, it never had a chance to really live their life. And I was thinking this whole thing maybe would go a whole different direction with this creature wanting a life, or it may go back to that. Who knows? That'd be, I think, would be a kind of a cool thing.
Do you think for sure we've seen the last of them?
I don't think. That's what I'm wondering. Wonder if maybe later on the creature, because we know the creature missed them. Maybe the creature will make an escape and want safe passage. And who's going to be the Young Justice? Say no. This creature can't have the safety. We can't give him sanctuary when they gave Superboy sanctuary.
Yeah. I Red Tornado. I understand why he did what he did, but I love that whole bit and the subconscious thing with Connor where he goes, I hate monkeys.
Yeah.
Do you think it was just because of this event, or was there more to it than that? The creature was just tapping into something.
I'm thinking just this event, because that seems like a very Joker-esque thing to do with monkeys, with backpacks that drop bombs and that eventually will explode. That was a very Joker, moment.
Again, though, we see him with Miss Martian.
Yeah.
And I know it's because she's living there, too, and because John's there, but yet there's something about the two of them, her being alien, him being... obviously this clone from Cadmus,
of an alien.
that I think the two of them understand each other in a way, and I feel like that's where the relationship's really blossoming.
Yeah.
They don't know it yet, though, I don't think. Well, she does, I think, clearly from the way she's reacting to him. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Great book.
Oh, definitely. Great book, great cartoon. Highly recommend, anybody just, watch the show. If you like the show, pick up the book, vice versa.
You don't need to be watching the show, though, in order to pick up the book. So it is
right.
something, if you're, a comic fan and you want to just give this a try, in and of itself, this book is able to be read with no issue at all.
Yes.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Jim, one of the books I wanted to talk about is Power Girl number 22. This is a book that I've been really enjoying. It was one of those, we've talked about this many times, I loved what Palmiotti Gray and Amanda Connor were doing on this book. It was just a fantastic run. It's hard to take over from that, and I've got to commend this team because it's consistently been delivering. And I think it's been increasing ever since you and I were talking about this over breakfast this morning, where you mentioned the connection to Generation Lost on how that's warmed you up to this book and gotten you into the new direction of it. What is it? Is it just that now, or is there something more?
Well, from the beginning, I got to echo your sentiments on the original creative team. Loved it. I was all in on it. I wanted more. I wanted more and more information, more and more stories about Power Girl, and as well as her inner secret identity. So I had a great initial introduction. When the new team came on, I trust Winnick's writing. I like his writing style, so I was, wondering where it was going to go, but I wasn't too worried because I know he's a good writer. But that connection, as you said, to Generation Lost that was the thing that was really sinking me in with this new team. And it was funny, over breakfast you were saying, this issue was the one that you can see beyond, just that Generation Lost connection. You can really start seeing her interactions with the rest of her team, the rest of the people at Starware, her general secret identity life that she's going to be building. And I got to agree with you that really this issue was a great point that started, flushing out that there is life beyond Generation Lost tie-in. And I'm really glad to see that we're going to get more Power Girl stories, but we're also going to get more Karen Starr stories.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is a key on my enjoyment on this title. I want to enjoy her in and out of her costume. I want to enjoy her, as a person as well as a hero. And the fact that she's got different secret identity issues than Superman or Batman is a nice twist and a nice dealings with her story.
One of the things that I'm really liking about Power Girl is that she is feeling very, very unique. She's not just another Supergirl. She's got her own flavor to her. I like that they haven't ignored her past with Earth 2, that this is a character that did come from the multiverse, and that's something that's playing into it. I'm glad they kind of meshed in all of her origins and really kind of clarified who she is. That's something that's great that's come out of DC with her. I'm liking that when she looks at Superman, she realizes that there is, in her mind, a family relationship there, but this isn't that same Superman for her. And that they feel like cousins. I'm glad Superman's embraced her that way. You know, he doesn't react when, like, she says cousin, like there isn't that relationship there. It was great to see them in this storyline where we got to see the two of them going up against these creatures that can do them harm and trying to figure out what's really going on. I was a fan of the way this storyline was told pace-wise, because we got to see them dropped right into the action right away, opening up with these huge dinosaurs that are fighting, which is always great to see Superman and Power Girl against, huge, enormous creatures, but not knowing what happened, and then kind of doing the flashback to, okay, how did we lead up to this? It didn't start off slow at all.
No, it jumps right into the action and gets you going on it. And again, it was funny because you're saying how Superman and Power Girl fighting the dinosaurs, and they figure out that it's magical dinosaurs, which is why they can't. They're having a hard time. Like, should this be this hard with it? And it's always funny thinking someone fighting a dinosaur thinking, oh, this should be going a lot easier than what it is. But they both have just those massive power levels. And then when Superman notices she's bleeding, and he notices, she notices he's bleeding, and he's just like, but you're bleeding, so are you, and we can't hear each other. Why are we having a hard time hearing? And I like just the little indicators, especially the first time one of them said, what'd you say? I was like, what? Hold on. It's just that nice little thing where they throw it out there, and then they further on, and it's a story-building moments.
It reminds us that they're veterans, too, though.
Yeah.
Because neither of these characters are rookies. Power Girl, rich history with the JSA, rich history with the JLA. This is a character who has been, non-stop active. And it's one of the things that I really enjoy about her. I also want to commend the art team on this book, because it's hard to follow up Amanda Connor. And I like that it doesn't feel like it's so drastically different from what Amanda Connor was doing. There's some echoes of that, yet they've done their own thing. They've put their own stamp on this book, and it is a very pretty book. The color work, I think, is just fantastic. The art, it's Sammy, and it's Basri, and I know I'm going to butcher the last name if I say it. Really very beautiful artwork in this book, and I'm really enjoying the whole look to it. The opening page with the dinosaur and Power Girl and Superman there, it's just a very breathtaking piece. And this is one of those things where I am definitely attached to this book now, not just because of the writing, but because of the beautiful art and story in there.
Yeah, definitely it's got a great look to it, and it's another one of those nice meshings of stories and artwork, because there is a bit of comical elements in her storytelling, especially when she's Karen Starr. She's celebrating, the return, the return of her company, the return of her fortunes, no work done today, everyone toasts into town, eat, drink, and be merry. And even when, Nico's saying, hey, do you think this is a smart idea? It's like, hey, don't worry. I got a car service for all the tunnel and bridge people, and what's New York City if it doesn't have a great rapid transit for those who can't, drink too much? I thought that kind of fun, friendly attitude that was being told in the story was reflected in the artwork. But on the serious fight sequences with her and Superman fighting the dinosaurs, you didn't lose any of the seriousness of the fighting. It's that nice, I don't know how to, I see it as, I want to say a soft art style, but that's not being insulting to it. It's just how it's not as rigid on the lining and the rigid on the drawing. It's more of a soft kind of open and friendlier kind of drawing. And I think it fits so great for action sequences and for the comical moments, and it's something I like about Amanda Connor's art as well. She has that same type of soft, friendly art style, so it fits the character.
I want to talk about comedy versus serious tones, because this book has talked, especially during the Winnick run when he's taken over now, the tone shifted of the book. There's still some comedy elements in it, but there's also a very serious tone with things that were going on in Starware, with what's going on with Max Lord, some of the mental manipulations that were going on in this, where she had to face her clone of herself and things like that in this series. In one of the letters, in the letter columns in the back, and I'm really enjoying those being back, because I like seeing different viewpoints from people, even if I don't agree with them. But there was an interesting letter in there where the person was posting that they feel that the book should make a decision between being serious or a comedy. And I'm going to disagree with that immensely. One of the things that I'm really liking about this book is that Karen can have a personality. She can be tongue-in-cheek, yet I still feel that she's serious. I still feel that when the situations call for it, she puts on her game face. And I think that's incredibly necessary. I think comedy a lot of times, not for just for a hero, for people in general, in any position, is a coping mechanism a lot of times. It'll a lot of times keep you on your game. So it's something I'm really enjoying about this book is it didn't throw out the window what was being done before by the previous creative team. Yes, it's taken the book in a new direction, but this is still that same character. It does feel like she's growing and she's evolving as time goes on, especially with her secret identity and the serious things that have happened to her. But the book it had a strong humor aspect when it kicked off. Humor is still a part of it, even though they've gone with a new direction. I think there's a nice balance there. Do you feel, though, that it needs to be one way or another?
Oh, God, no. I think, life is comedy and drama all wrapped up in one. Just look at, what we went through at the airport getting here. Not as serious a drama as Karen's going through, but it was still a very traumatic experience. And what did we do afterwards? We started laughing through it, and that laughter got us through, especially got me through the anxiety of it. So you have to have both in life, and I think that makes a comic book more realistic if it goes through all of the gambit of emotions. One of the big problems when you're dealing with someone with the power levels of Power Girl, the power levels of Superman, is it's so easy to separate them from humanity. Well, it's their emotions that make them human. Even when Clark and Karen are talking about her secret identity. And she's like, and she's kind of like, yeah, I know, I'm different than everybody else. I came to Earth as an alien. I came to Earth as Power Girl, and then I created Karen Starr. And Clark's like, you're one of the most humane people that I know. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a great statement on his part to say, you're not just an alien. You are a human. You are a person. You have these emotions. And it's true, and you got to see both of that in a title to really draw, not only just to draw you in, but to get you to think about her as somebody other than who punches things really hard.
Well, see, it's funny. One of the things, when we use the term being human, I don't relate that to a species. I relate that to a state of mind, a compassion for people. We talk about, you used the word humane, because he didn't call her humane, he said that she was the most human. But actually, you're using the term humane as exactly part of what I think about when somebody says that. It's do you have the basic core concepts of what we consider being a good human? It's that ability to care, it's that ability to have compassion. It's that your actions have consequences, and those consequences matter to you. When you make mistakes, there are things that that bother you, and you strive to do something about them. That's something I really am enjoying about this book. One of the things that I really enjoyed in this issue was when we got to see her as Karen Starr, and how that is a little more awkward for her. She's still trying to find her way there, and it's something that is addressed in the conversation between her and Superman. There's a lot to celebrate for them.
Yeah.
Max Lord pulled one over on them, and they managed to survive and get everything back. He did the ultimate identity theft, which is a very today concept. It's if somebody wants to do this, it can happen, unfortunately, very easily. And I love that they won out, but it was something that we saw over time. It wasn't a one-issue thing. It was throughout this arc. We've gotten to see this happen, and I really enjoyed it. I like Nico as a character.
Yeah.
I like how he discovered that she was Power Girl. I like that it took some time for them to develop the relationship where it is now. And I like that he just doesn't go, yes, Karen. He is an advisor, and he's not afraid to tell her, I don't agree with what you're doing right now, or maybe you should rethink this.
Well, and it's interesting that both Nico and Superman kind of had the same type of warning for her about putting yourself out there, about making herself Karen Starr so known and being so public about it, because it was funny with his conversation with her as he's talking to her, she's a very definite physique, and how difficult will it be to see that Karen Starr is Power Girl? And that's what I'm wondering where they're going to go. Is she going to change the outward appearance of Karen Starr to keep the Power Girl thing going, or how is she going to go? Or maybe I'm wondering if she's going to openly embrace the secret.
But I think what he's trying to say there, I don't think he's trying to tell her to openly embrace. You mean openly embrace the secret as far as let it out?
No, I'm wondering. I'm not saying he's telling her that.
No, I think he's telling her the opposite.
Right,
I think he's telling her make Karen Starr a real person, in the sense that you can't keep blurring the lines. People have got to know who Karen Starr really is. She's got to have a firm identity. People have got to be able to identify Karen Starr as a separate entity. You aren't putting enough into Karen Starr, is I think the point that he's trying to make there. And I really like that, because I think it's a case in point saying, hey, you've got an identity, and I like that he's acknowledging what we all know, because to me it's silly not to. Obviously she has a body type that, would stand out. And I'm not just talking about, the breasts and things like that with it. I'm actually talking about, you can go with the face, the body, the whole package. Power Girl's one of those identifiable personalities that people are not going to miss if she comes flying by on her TV screen.
Yeah.
So you've got to, when you're making Karen Starr into a person, into a character, you've got to keep that in mind and say to yourself, how are you going to make sure people notice you as somebody different, as somebody unique? I think it's a very important, conversation piece if you want to have a private life.
Oh, definitely. And when I was reading this, I took it that she never lets Superman know that Nico knows her secret. Because he's talking about, your assistant, Nico, is a genius. How long will it take a genius to figure this out? And he already knows. And so I find it kind of interesting that she's keeping that fact from Clark, that he knows the secret.
Yeah, I wonder why she isn't.
Well, I was thinking about this because part of me wonders that she's keeping it, a secret from him because he doesn't want him or any of the other heroes to worry about what else does this guy know.
Yeah.
This guy knows that Karen is Power Girl. Being the concerned friend that Clark is, first thing he's going to do is he's going to do an in-depth check on Nico. And he's going to find out his criminal background. And that's going to be some red flags, and he's going to be concerned for his friend. And I think that's her way of kind of protecting and just making light, not adding to his stress.
It's also though it's her call. That really isn't his call. It's her decision who she trusts and who she tells. He doesn't know Nico. I do like that he's concerned about that.
Yeah,
that's great. But I don't have an issue at all with her not telling him. I don't know that I would either in that case. Because I don't know that that's his business.
That's a tough call. Because on one hand,
but do you feel? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I'll go to you on this. But do you feel? And this will add to probably your response to this. Do you feel that it's necessary, like if you have a private conversation with a friend, to tell all your other friends that you've had that private conversation?
No. There's times when you keep stuff from your friends, and I understand that. Mm-hmm. It's just the one thing though. Part of it is just what happens. I've seen in life, what I've seen in comic books. When you keep secrets, it sometimes comes back and bites you in the butt because eventually Superman will figure it out or will realize it, and then she'll have to have that conversation with him saying, why didn't you tell me beforehand?
Except I don't know that I agree with that. Here's a case in point, and I'm going to use you as an example. You and I were very good friends. You're like a brother to me. We have a lot of private conversations as good friends would. I don't feel the need with other friends that I have that relationship with to reveal conversations that you and I have had. That isn't keeping a secret from them. They just aren't a part of that. And very similar to the private conversations I have with them, I don't feel the need to tell them to you. But I don't think I'm keeping secrets when I'm doing that. I think those are personal conversations with those people. It's nothing that affects them. Nico knowing this doesn't, because she hasn't told Nico like that Clark Kent is Superman.
Right.
That's something that she would need to tell Clark. That's a secret that she would be keeping from Clark. I would have a major issue with that. And that would be a line that she crossed. But in this case, I don't feel that she needs to reveal that to him.
Right.
I don't feel that that's something that it doesn't affect Clark. It only affects her. And it's her judgment call and her right to do that. And also her right to respect Nico's privacy. I don't know if I'm making sense there. I just kind of...
No, you're making sense, dude. I understand it. To be honest, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Because, it's in the end, it is her call to make, and I'm not criticizing or bad-mouthing her or anything.
No.
I'm just thinking long-term, and
I'm saying I like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so am I. We're on the same page here.
Do you really think it's going to... Why is that going to come back? I don't see that.
I think it has the potential to come back. I think it has the potential for that conversation where they're going to have, where it's going to be, why didn't you tell him this? Why didn't you tell me he knew your secret? Well, I didn't need to, Clark. It's my life. And it'll be a conversation.
Oh, and I would like that. I actually would like that if that happens. I don't think it necessarily has to happen, though.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if it did, I agree with you. I wouldn't mind seeing it. I just don't think it's something that's necessary. I don't take it as being ominous. Like I said, if it was a deep secret where she was like revealing Batman's Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent is Superman, those are things she needs to reveal to them immediately.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing this as an ominous, foreboding.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not seeing that. I'm just seeing this as a, again, I think of her as a friend. I'm connecting with her as a person and as my friend, and I'm like, hey, this may come back. You may have to deal with this later time. Kind of a warning, where if you're talking, I'm looking out for her. I got her back. Just wanted her to think in the back of her mind that maybe someday you're gonna have to explain to Clark why you didn't tell him, why he, you didn't let him in on the secret, that he knew your secret identity kind of deal. I didn't want to, it's not a really bad, negative, connotation. Oh my God, this is going to be a terrible, terrible thing.
And I agree with you. It's not a secret identity kind of deal.
Yeah, you caught it. As soon as I said it, I realized I said it. Like, oh, okay.
I was going to let it go too, but I thought it was funny. It's one of the things that I'm really enjoying about this book is exactly what you touched on, though. I do feel that she's a friend. 22 issues in, and both creative teams have hit a home run with this. It's hard to do that with characters, to give you an attach rate to them, because there's so many characters that we're reading right now, and her adventures are important to me. You know what character I'd like to see come back in the book at some point when appropriate? Tara.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to see Tara come back. They had a great, it was a great relationship between the two of them. And I was hoping she was going to be a regular kind of, she would have Tara's secret identity would be working for Starware. And I was hoping we would see more of her become as a person, because I thought those were some great scenes between Karen and Tara, where taking her to the movie theater, where they were watching The Wire, and I was cracking up when they're sitting on her couch watching The Wire, and Tara points to the TV going, "Omar's coming," because if you've ever seen the show, you know what's going on when Omar's coming, and I was like, yes, it's just a cool moment that I enjoyed as a Wire fan as well as a comic book fan. So it was a nice meshing of the two, and I'm looking forward to the I can't think of the character's name, the other female who bought out, who basically did that hostile takeover.
Oh, the doctor?
Yeah, when she comes back into the picture, because she's just looking really
I don't think that she's left
mad.
The picture.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely, it's not over. This was not the last we're going to see of her. And I like the fact that when she's sitting there trying to, when she's yelling at the
Dr. Ophelia Day.
Dr. Ophelia Day, when she's yelling at the federal agent, he's just taking it very calmly. The second she puts her hand on her, he reminds her, I'm a federal agent, executing my duties. Remove your hand. Because that right there is assaulting an officer. That's assaulting a federal marshal. There's multiple
NSA agent.
Yeah. There's multiple things that she could be charged with at that moment, just for that simple hand on the arm. Now, most guys aren't going to charge with that because that would be a really bad move to do. But he had every right. He had right there. Interrupting, interfering in the execution of federal orders. Multiple things just from a simple arm grip. And I'm glad they didn't let that go. I'm glad he mentioned it.
I'm glad he also mentioned the fact that you can sue, you can go ahead and do whatever you want, but you're just going to be so tied up in legislation that it's not going to accomplish anything for you. Really showing at this point that she doesn't have a leg to stand on. It was an interesting power play there, because that's what that whole moment was. It was a power play where she made one, and it's coming back to bite her now.
Yeah, and that's what happens sometimes in business, and she was dancing the line of legality. Was she illegal? No, she was taking advantage of an illegal situation. And if she had pre-knowledge that it was an illegal situation, then she'd be arrested right now. But you got to watch sometimes when your businesses, when you start, crossing over that line, when you start going from just a savvy business deal to taking advantage of a criminal action.
One of the things I really enjoyed was when Superman was let himself be swallowed, because he started to figure out what was going on. There's something about, I don't know, like superheroes like Superman and stuff like that who are invulnerable like that, getting swallowed by giant creatures and then bursting out of them.
Yeah.
I get into that whole thing.
Well, even the look on Karen's face was like, Superman, kind of that shock.
Facial expressions in this book have been a key, both with Superman and especially her, though. Yeah. She is a very emotional character. I love that about her. There's something about the reality about her reactions, surprise, shock, terror, that play out very well in this book, and it's something that I really appreciate that an artist is able to convey, because I think that's very hard to draw that and consistent. There's a consistency in the look of the character, no matter what facial expressions. I always know it's Power Girl.
Yes.
And that's one of the great things. I don't have to see her costume. You can do a close-up of her face, and you're going to see those moments. I really dig that.
Oh,
we haven't talked about the bad guy at all.
I know.
With the trench coat and his little hood on and all that. I don't know who he is.
He's definitely got to be a new person on the scene, and I like him. He's a little smarmy, kind of, looks a little bit weaselly, if you will, kind of facial expressions. He's obviously a rookie in the game. He's, new to the thing. Even he says he's young into the magic scene, but so I'm assuming there's going to be a cocky level to him. So, yeah.
What's he doing to Zatanna? Because her mouth's taped up, so he says, especially if they knew that you were responsible. So is he tapping into her powers? He needs her there? Because obviously she's not doing it. Because if her mouth's taped up, she can't be drawing from it. So how is he doing it?
I'm guessing siphoning of power. She's the power battery. He's jumped up, hooked up the jumper cables to her, and he's just siphoning it away. Or maybe he was at one of her shows, tricked her somehow, got some magic from her. I'm not sure where it's going to go. Of course, we're going to see it in the story. So that was just a great way to end the issue with her bound and gagged. And he even says, imagine when they find out that it's you doing this.
What do you think about letter columns being back in the DC Comics? Have you been reading them? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm actually genuinely curious. Do you read them?
I've been reading them big time. I'm really enjoying that. And there's been it's funny because I can express my opinion on the comics on the show, but I want to write in. And there's been a couple times where I was like, and I haven't actually created one yet, but there's a couple of comics I'm thinking about sending stuff into. And Power Girl was one of them because I just really wanted to say, but it's all the stuff I really have to say is just like praising, and I don't know if that's really a good thing for the column
if you take a look, though, the letters are a mixture where people will put up criticisms, they'll put up praises. I don't think there's anything wrong with that because I think it's good for a creative team to know what you're liking. So if you're sitting there saying, there's some things I'd really like them to know that I'm enjoying, I think it is good for a creative team to have that feedback. You are being just as critical when you're being positive, especially if you're sitting there saying, well, I think the book is cool. The book is cool. I think it's awesome. The art is good. That's not giving them a lot of feedback, but if you're picking out specific things that they're doing with a character that you're really enjoying, like we talked about in the artwork, I'm really enjoying the facial expressions. Those are things, I think that's good feedback for the artist to know, like, hey, when I'm making those decisions, I'm making an emotional connection with my fans. You got to get a little bit more specific. So positive or negative, it doesn't matter as long as you're giving details that they can work with. A writer wants to know, hey, I'm making a connection with the character because of some of the things you're doing in Starware and how awkward she is when she's in her secret identity. That's something that I think lets the writer know, like, hey, I hit what I wanted to hit there, and that's a direction I need to continue to explore because they like that.
Well, it's funny because what I was going to say in the letter was pretty much what I said while we're talking about it, about the fact that we're now seeing more of Karen Starr and we're getting the Karen Starr personality. And I wanted to say how much I really want to see this, that I don't want Power Girl just to be the person, who punches things really hard. I want to see the person behind the costume. I want to see that duality in nature. And I was really glad I'm getting that in Power Girl. And that was basically going to be the letter I was going to send.
At some point in time, the word being critical became a negative connotation. It's really not. It's using evidence to back your thoughts and ideas. Using a critical eye. So you can pull out, if you're really enjoying the book and you've got nothing but positive things to say, as long as you've got evidence to back that up, you're being critical. So it is something that you can send in a good letter doing that. One of the things that I really liked at the DC Nation panel yesterday, they were asking about the letter columns, and Dan DiDio even mentioned that he initially was against the idea, didn't see the need for them, but the more they talked about it, the more he realized this is a great opportunity for those fans who want to be able to write something a little bit more expanded, to write something a little bit more personal and well thought out, which is what ends up happening when you're writing a letter into the company. You can do that now and get your thoughts into the book. And they were surprised at the overwhelming number of responses that they're getting to the books. I think that's great, because that means there's a lot of fans who've been saying, hey, I've been waiting for this. I've been wanting to get interactive with my comics again. And these might be fans who are already participating in forums and things. But these also might be fans, on our podcast, we have a number of great fans who just enjoy the show. They don't listen and write into the show and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy our fan community we interact with. I also enjoy the fan community that we don't, in the sense that it's great that they care enough to listen to the show. But I think this is an opportunity for those fans to write in and just have that isolated personal experience of connecting with the comic book without participating in a forum or a website or something like that, which may have been something they were looking for. I think it does open up opportunities for a different market, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And I think that works there. So it's kind of cool.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
Jim, I want to talk about some of the panels that have been here at the con. It's been interesting because usually I'm used to, when we go to conventions, coming out with a lot of news and a lot of new information. I understand completely why we're not getting that at this one. We've got the big event, Flashpoint event coming on. And I was kind of wondering, is this event going to be isolated? How much impact is it going to have on the universe? Apparently it's going to be a huge impact, because what they were saying is we're going to see this shift to the Flashpoint universe and then a shift back to the DC universe, but it's going to be changed because Flashpoint happened. It's not going to come back all nice and neat like this event didn't happen at all. There are going to be titles that are continuing on during it, but it sounds like even those titles will be affected on some level by this because it's going to be a universe shift when everything is all said and done. So I'm going to be curious to see what ends up changing during it. But what was your experience like when you were at the DC Universe panel today?
Well, it's actually very similar to what you're saying. They didn't have big reveals on it, and they were just an open discussion. And they did throw out a couple teasers and a couple surprises coming on the pipeline. But one of the interesting things that I really found was Brian Azzarello was there. And if you've ever been to a panel or heard a panel with him, he's got a very distinctive, definite personality where he's very blunt up front and tells you like it is. And it's one of the things I like about him and I like about his writing style. And he's working the Batman Flashpoint storyline, and he opens up with, I don't like these things. I don't like radio, I don't like being a part of them, but this one's different. And you could see him searching for wording, and he didn't want to throw out the buzzwords that everyone's been throwing out, but even those he had to say them. He's like, it will change the universe. This is something different. And he was restating what everyone else was stating, but for some reason, when it was coming from him, you really get that feeling that there's something else out there. There's going to be something different here. And one of the questions I was asked was a neat thing about, is Bruce Wayne going to be in this universe? Now, they didn't say is Bruce Wayne going to be Batman? They said, is Bruce Wayne going to be in the universe? And everyone was kind of pausing and quiet, and finally Azrael says, well, he's kind of got to be, doesn't he? He didn't really come out and say anything definite about him being Batman or anything like that. It was a nice, again, a kind of a general, hidden, concealed details behind it. And I thought that was, again, another telling statement of Azrael is doing something a little bit different here, and the universe will be changed after everything is done.
Yeah, which is something that I'm finding very curious. A lot of Wonder Woman discussion in the panels that I was at, where people were asking questions, what does this mean for Wonder Woman? What will Wonder Woman be like at the end of the current arc? Not Flashpoint specific. They were asking the current storyline in Wonder Woman, what will that be like? And they were saying they can't announce creative teams or anything yet because this arc needs to play out, and because Wonder Woman's story is an alternate universe story, it also is going to have ramifications. More and more of the comments from inside the panel and from listeners that I was talking to in the panels as well, but from the creators who were announcing it and Dan DiDio and everyone else, it seems more and more like Wonder Woman is intricately linked to Flashpoint, more than we're even realizing.
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't have a lot of Wonder Woman discussion. There was just a couple of general statements, and it was a lot of non-committal answers in our board.
In that case, too, with Wonder Woman, it was a lot of non-committal, but there was some hints that this is, with the way where they were talking about it, they can't talk about Wonder Woman until after the alternate universe shift. Yeah. And the way that they were talking about it was in the same way they were talking about Flashpoint. So I could be making a connection there that isn't necessarily true, but it sure seems like it.
Now, the biggest non-committal answer that we had in my panel was people asked about Wally. And we're asking about Wally and the Flash and the Flash universe, but specifically they're asking about Wally, and the flat-out answer they gave is all questions about Wally West will not be answered. Flat out, boom. So who knows what's going to happen in that universe. And same deal with what's going on with the Kid Flash Lost, because in a way, it almost sounded like that may not be Bart as Kid Flash.
Well, Wally West, the pivotal key there with Wally West is if they can't answer the questions, that means something's being done with him.
Exactly.
So that's a sign that he's going to be a pretty major player in this, at least, pretty major happenings with him.
Now, you know what else they announced in my panel, which is actually really good news? Chris Burnham, he's the artist on the Batman Inc.
Okay.
He is now DC exclusive.
Oh, cool.
And it was kind of neat because they brought it up and they told people, and he was laughing, saying how people were coming up to him and asking him, hey, what you going to do next? And he's like, I don't know. And he can't give out the answer. Now he can actually say it. So that's really
he's on
exciting.
Batman Inc. Is he exclusive on Batman Inc.?
It sounds like he's exclusive on Batman Inc. Because he started talking about some of the stuff that's going to happen in Batman Inc. number 8.
Right.
There's going to be some Oracle connections, and he just was throwing out information on how people were asking about Batwoman. And he's like, oh yeah, Batman 4. Batman Inc. 4. She's going to be there.
I know when I looked up online to see some information about him, I know he's on like issue 4, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily means that he's going to be ongoing on that. I'm not arguing if it would be, but
it sounded like he was going to be on a lot longer than 8. He's continuing on from the way it sounded, because they put up actually a page, and it was his artwork, and it was really cool. It showed Batman on a motorcycle. Riding next to him was a Native American Batman, I'm assuming, riding a buffalo. And then there was another Native American riding a horse, and it was. I'm assuming it's looked like a Native American Batman and Robin.
It's the cousin of Super Chief.
Exactly, something like that going on. And I was like, it was a really cool artwork, and it looked neat. And I was like, oh. And he's like, yeah, that's my work. And we're like, and it was a good round of applause.
I'm loving Batman Inc. That book is so fun. I love seeing him with these wacky characters, yet we don't lose Bruce in there. So that's something that I'm really excited to just see more of it and see them exploring different things. I like that these stories are all turning out to be at least 2-parters or more.
And there's tie-ins back to the Return of Bruce Wayne. The Batman Return special, there's a direct tie-in with issue 6 of Batman Inc. And as we said, Batman Inc. 8 has that Oracle discussion that Bruce and Oracle have. There's a connection tie-in to that whole conversation and that whole that what played out there. So that's kind of a really neat thing. And actually, people threw out some Batgirl questions, and he was answering those as well. The whole with Stephanie in London, everyone, because they flat out asked, is she moving to London? Is she going to, change her city? And he's like, Batgirl is going to be infiltrating a girls' school that is now exactly what it seems. So it seems like it's going to be just like a story arc driven, her in London, her in this girls' school.
But as a mission for Bruce.
But as a mission for Bruce.
Cool.
So that's, I was like, kind of nice to see them just in. That one he threw out flat out an answer, not a hidden answer. And they did that a couple times. They have a couple others where they're like, well, like the Marvel family came up. They asked,
That's come up at every panel.
What?
I'm not exaggerating.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Cornell and Gail, nothing's been announced, but they did say there's plans in the future for them. But Paul Cornell and Gail Simone both raised their hands saying, we'd love to work on that. Please don't take that, anybody listening, as announcements. But I loved seeing writer enthusiasm for working on the Marvels. Well, and one of the things at the panel I was just at today, the DC Icons panel, who would you consider to be a fourth icon? Hal was thrown out by some of the panelists, but Dan DiDio threw out that I'd like to see Captain Marvel.
And the answer that was given at my panel was Flashpoint. They said there's a lot of lightning going on there.
Well, and we've already seen that, that there is somebody wearing that. But that will that lead to... could that be explaining the return of Captain Marvel on our end?
That's what I'm wondering, because they threw out flat out, and they said it wasn't even just like he'd have a series in Flashpoint. They made it sound like there's going to be a lot of the Marvel family in Flashpoint. They're going to have a heavy influence and a heavy draw on it. So they were really inferring strongly that he would have, the Marvel family would be strongly involved. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out, especially there's going to be changes coming post Flashpoint. This could be a change.
Well, I'm assuming the whole board, from what they were saying, there were things that were in Time Masters that are directly influencing it. So I'm assuming that whole board that we saw at the end plays heavily into all this. And Shazam was a major figure on there.
Yeah, another big implication that they're throwing out hints towards, but not giving a definite answer, was involving JLA and JLI. Mm-hmm. Because there was multiple questions about Generation Lost continuing, and they flat out said, yeah, it could happen. And then people were saying, hey, what about bringing back the JLI, which is pretty much the Generation Lost. And they kept saying just, that could definitely happen. That's something people are looking at. We're looking strongly into it. And then with the Justice League, again, there was more talk about the rumored another Justice League title that would have the big names on it. And I don't know if this is just all con gossip speculation, or if this is actually something they have planned in the works to bring out a second Justice JLA title.
They said maybe at the panel I was at. They did maybe, but again, a lot of those things were thrown out as far as I think implying things, getting people excited versus being definite announcements. I want to mention one thing back to Wonder Woman. Phil Hester was in the panel that I was at, and he was talking about where this storyline is going to go as it continues on for the next few issues. Because he said it sounds like they're cutting the story down a little bit with where it's going to tie into Flashpoint, or at least the ending of how it's going to go. And he was saying that you're going to see a series right now where we are able to, because she's in this bubble, kind of go anywhere and do anything. So you're going to see a lot of villains reworked, a lot of characters reworked, things like that as they're coming in, because this is this bubble universe. So similar to what we've seen, like how the cheetah has been changed, Artemis, things like that, we're going to be seeing more of that continuing on. And it's their chance to kind of really play around with Diana, which, again, doesn't sound like all of those things are going to be permanent. It sounds like they're all playing around with the bubble that she's trapped in at the moment.
That's actually kind of cool. Yeah. I'm really wondering where this is going to go and where they're going to take her. And
in the one panel I was at, too, they had Detective Comics writer Scott Snyder in there. And he said 875, is that jumping on point with Jim's son and why everyone's nervous about him. But in 876, Jock is back on. And new faces of the Gotham Underworld. The daughter of Boss Zuko, who killed Dick Grayson's family, is going to be in power. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of that changing face of the Gotham Underworld.
Yeah, I was, when he mentioned that in my panel as well about we're going to see exactly why Barbara and Gordon are nervous around him, which is a definite statement when you think about Jim Gordon and when you think about Oracle. What can shake those two? Well, we're going to find out just how nasty, peculiar, whatnot he can get.
A scrawny kid.
Oh, yeah. And he even described him, a little scrawny kid, with glasses. Why are these people afraid of him? And another thing that they talked about was the fact that they've revealed that Bruce's mom's last name is Kane. And they asked, is there a connection between her and Cassandra Cain? And is there going to be any identification on that? And they said in the Gates of Gotham, there's going to be exploration of Bruce's mother and her relationship, the connection of the different Wayne and the Kane family, and actually even a possible, they implied a return of Cassandra Cain.
No, they didn't imply it. They said in the panel I was at, Cassandra Cain's in the series.
Oh, okay.
So that was something that was announced. They said that that series, Gates of Gotham, is a race to build up Gotham in the past. So you'll see the buildings going up. They're competing with Metropolis to try and be like the biggest and best city. So we're going to see those routes. A lot of secrets are going on during that time, and Dick Grayson's going to discover a lot of them and their connection to the present day. So it's a big story that explores Gotham's past while connecting it to present day.
Oh, definitely. And it was funny because they were asking about Aquaman and Hawkman, and they're answering saying, "Oh yeah, anybody in Brightest Day has a solid future. It, has a solid, has a definite, solid potential to be in the future." And they're talking, and then everyone's like, "But they just died." He goes, "Oh yeah," So I'm taking it to mean that they're going to come back.
Well, I think we all knew that.
Yeah.
That's not really a big shock to me that they're coming back. No. They had an interesting Batman Beyond news in the one panel I was at, because it's not really news as far as something new for the series, but they were talking about how New York Times has a best-selling graphic novel list, and for this week it was the #1 best-selling graphic novel, Batman Beyond.
Nice. That's cool to know.
Yeah.
Now, they did talk about Brightest Day ending. Now, they didn't give details or suggestions or anything like that. All they would say is that it's going to have a shocking ending.
I'm assuming myself that the shocking ending is going to revolve around who gets the white ring, who winds up being that White Lantern. My speculation is what the shocking ending is going to be. Well, again, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, and it's when they were talking about some of the closed, ending titles, Rebels, and with Freedom Fighters, they asked, "Hey, are these people? Are they going to be around still?" And we got a definite yes that Freedom Fighters will still be around. There was a very questionably shady, non-committal answer when Outsiders was brought up. Where that's going. They kind of made a little bit of jokes about the deal not wanting to share where things are going to happen, but it's unknown what's going to happen to Outsiders.
He was in the Icons panel that I was in, and he was implying that I'm hoping that people will use these characters afterwards. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a disbanding of the Outsiders due to all this.
I think we're going to get a complete ending of them. Now, one of the characters they asked about was Starfire. They said after Rebels ends, what happens to her? And they're like, you'll be surprised. So it sounds like she's going to have a definite place where she's going to be. Because the question was, kind of directed, anytime there's a female character, it was kind of getting directed at Gail, who was sitting on the panel. But, I think it was Braganza who answered and said, you'll be surprised.
What if she go back to Justice League?
Maybe.
Because she was meant to stay with Justice League, I thought, initially, and then because they were moving her to Rebels. So I'm wondering if maybe now that Robinson will get her back.
I think that'd be kind of nice. I like the character, so it should be a good usage of her.
Right. So I wouldn't mind seeing her on that team. That'd be interesting.
Sometimes you get like interesting conversations that I never thought would actually come up, or even get any type of passionate response to. We had one at our panel because we had Franco there, we had Mike Norton there, and they were talking about Young Justice, and it was some cool stuff where they're talking, especially Norton was saying how crafting some of these characters, and he actually got to craft what the Psycho Pirate's going to look like in the Young Justice universe, and it's going to be the same deal that's used in Hollywood. It's like usually Hollywood gives me what I got to do, and that's where I keep it to. And they actually gave him control over some certain villains. Now he only would give us Psycho Pirate, so we don't know who else they're going to face. But it was kind of neat to have him say this, and so then they started talking about the team and the book and how crafting it is you're very constricted as to what you can do, but you do have some freedom in certain areas because these characters aren't set to a fixed slate. They have a nice open palette that you can do with them, but there are Hollywood limitations. There are limitations where the TV show is going to go, and it was very interesting how the two have to stay connected and be, a synchronization. I thought that was a neat discussion. Then they started talking about Aqualad and what future does he have, and is he going to be around, and is there going to be stuff with him? And everybody on the panel was like, yeah, Aqualad's going to be around. He's after post Brightest Day. He's a very popular character. They threw back to the panel room about his hair. Dreadlocks, as in current continuity, or the shorter, more blondish look that's in Young Justice. And people started yelling out, dreads, no, shorter, no. And people were going back and forth, and they actually had a vote. Okay, what do you guys like? Which one do you think is better? And the Young Justice cartoon, shorter, blonder hair actually won out substantially.
It's not really blonde, it's more like whitish.
Well, blondish white. They were calling it blonde, but it is kind of whitish.
Yeah.
So it was kind of. I was kind of shocked to sit around people arguing. Well, not even arguing, discussing his hair.
Do you care?
Well, I actually voted for the shorter look.
Do you?
Yeah. For some reason, I like just in the cartoon, how that looks, and it's nice, streamlined and fighting. Now, the dreadlocks do look cool. I can't take away from. There's a nice presence that around the head, kind of that power. It looks kind of like a helmet, but it's not, and it has that motion, and there is a strength to it, almost a crown.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the funny thing. I actually feel like the one in Young Justice is a little more seasoned than the one we're seeing in Brightest Day. He seems like a character that's been around for a while. They're implying he's been a sidekick of Aquaman's for a while. For some reason, the shorter hair in that, it implies more of a maturity of him. Yeah. Would that make sense? So I don't know that I kind of like the dread look because it kind of makes him feel a little younger, a little more. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't care, to be honest. Like, if they go to that for both, great. I don't know that the Young Justice continuity needs to necessarily totally fit. Like having Artemis in there as instead of Speedy, that stuff doesn't bother. I really like that. I want to touch on one thing you were mentioning when the creative team having those limitations on there. I actually think that something that's impressing me even more is how compelling they're making the stories with those limitations. Finding creative ways to make the stories interesting and relevant and feel like they're taking the characters in new directions and expanding upon their personalities and everything, while at the same time staying within those parameters. And I think they're hitting a home run with that. I think that's really impressive.
Oh, definitely. And it's, one of the things that they were talking about was with Gail Simone being on the panel, a lot of people were throwing out, what about this female? What about this female? Manhunter will be back in Birds of Prey.
Nice.
Now, she didn't say whether it was going to be a long run or just a story arc. They flat out asked her if she'll be returning. She said yes, without any hesitation, so that was really cool to see. Talking about Huntress, the big Huntress Catman date is coming, and it's not going to end well for either one of them. So kind of curious where that's going to go. And then she started talking about Bane, and it was wonderful teasing because she's like, things are going to get nasty for Bane. And they showed what looked to be a cover of, again, Bane breaking the back of another bat. And so who knows where that's going to go. After this whole hell card is played, we're going to see some stuff get nasty for Bane. and some more exploration, because that was something she threw out to the crowd saying, hey, are you enjoying Bane? And got a really good response.
And I'm glad she's going to be exploring that character more, because I've always been a huge fan of Bane. So I want to see where he can take this character and what he can do with him.
They also talked a little bit, kind of just did a flash page and a quick discussion about the Reign of Doomsday is going to come to a culmination in Action Comics 900. So that's kind of, they're talking a big story. We're going to see exactly why, what's going on, the whole what is going on with Doomsday. And they even said Doomsday's been kidnapping, not killing the heroes. Now, whether it was just a statement or it actually, who knows. So I think they're not dead yet. So that's kind of interesting. We're going to see where that goes. And also, Weird World, was there, and they're talking a little bit about that. And, again, the question throughout about the continuation of these type of stories, and they're like, if they sell, they'll keep coming back, and it is a definite, sales driven. Let us know if you want this, because the one female character from there, Tanga, she is a 12-chapter story where the first 6 chapters are being told in Weird World. So there's going to be another 6 chapters to be told of her story somewhere. Yeah.
So, and I'm hoping that story gets to be played out. I went to the Vertigo panel, Jim, and at the Vertigo panel was Bill Willingham, Scott Snyder, Tony Akins, Jill Thompson, and Shelley Bond, the group editor. They were talking about Jill Thompson's upcoming Delirious Party, which is a companion to the little Endless storybook that she's done in the past. So if anybody who's read that, it's something you can grab. But it's also a new story, so if you haven't read that one before, it's accessible on that end. It's the Sandman universe, but it's fun for everybody, including kids. It's painted, gorgeous artwork. They were showing artwork panels, and they're like, oh my gosh, is this great. Delirium never sees her sister Despair smile, so she's throwing a party, to see what's going to happen. With, we can get her excited and all that. She said she actually makes the Endless cry during part of it, which is great. Little Endless first appeared in issue 40. They were doing like this kind of contest where people could answer trivia questions. They would get signed books, which was a lot of fun. This was the first time. Did you see that Bill Willingham is the butler of Dan DiDio today?
No.
I guess he lost a bet with Dan DiDio where one of them had to be the butler for a day. And it was being done here. He's all dressed up in a suit with a tie on, and it's like gloves, everything. And he's been his butler. He was given a reprieve to go to this panel, but then, see, my panel was back-to-back with the DC Icons panel, the Vertigo panel. So when I went into the DC Icons panel, he came over there and he was serving water to everyone on the panel.
Nice.
Based on Dan DiDio saying, does anybody here need water? This is my butler, Willie. So it was great, and they were both laughing about it, and it was great that they brought us in on this whole thing. It became just a wonderful moment at the con. American Vampire, with issue 13, the covers start to make one giant poster. Are you still reading that book?
Oh, definitely.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder was talking about how the new story arc is going to be in World War II. Henry, Pearl, and Skinner are in this one, and Henry's dealing with the fact that he's aging and Pearl is not.
Yeah.
And this is something that's driving him to enlist, kind of dealing with his own mortality and that type of thing. But because of previous injuries, he's not able to enlist, so he's finding clever ways to try and get more involved. So we're going to see that. He talked about how Stephen King got involved in the whole thing, and he said Stephen King reviewed some of his short story work previously, and they had a relationship that way. He asked him for like a press blurb, kind of promoting the book, and King said, well, if you'd like me to do an issue at some point in time, I'd be interested. And that led to, and he said, if you tell me that and I tell DC that, they're going to try to get you now. And that led to him doing this story. And he said it was a lot of fun working with King on the story because he would kept sending things back like, yeah, just turn the character into a bat, did all this stuff. And he kept throwing things back to tease Scott Snyder as he was going along and freak him out. So he was having a lot of fun pulling pranks on him the whole time. I'm a huge fan of Stephen King myself, so it was very cool to hear that. There is a mini-series that's going to be coming out running concurrently with that arc called Survival of the Fittest. It's an American vampire mini-series. It takes place in World War II as well on the other coast in Europe. So they're going to show what other vampires are doing, and this is going to have Nazi vampires.
You got to have some Nazi vampires. So they fit so well.
Yeah, so it's going to be a companion piece to this story as well. Fables with Bill Willingham, he's talking about starting with issue number 103, there's going to be a super team story. And it's not, there's a lot of rumors on the net, he was saying, where they're being forced to do this story, because of sales and all that. And he said, nobody's forcing me to do this. He said, this is something that I want to do. It's a new arc. And he said that little Pinocchio has a small band of characters with him that are fighting, bad guy in the story, and he's a comic book fan who says, hey, if we're banding together like in comic books, shouldn't we become a super team? So they're going to be exploring this in this arc. It's a 5-issue arc where he's going to be doing that. Werewolves of the Heartland is going to be coming up. This is another Fables special project. It's going to be around Christmas. And this is Bigby focused, Bigby Wolf. And it tells what happened on his mission away in the Americas. So it's going to be another one of those nice... And I love these Fable specials because they've got gorgeous artwork. There's something great about them. They're very contained, yet there's something for Fables fans that have been reading them. So...
And as soon as you said that title, first thought that popped in my head was, dun 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 dun, Werewolves of Heartland.
That was not the first thing that popped into my head. Jack of Fables is ending with issue 50, and it's the stories come to conclusion.
Yeah.
They said a lot of Vertigo series have a definite conclusion. He said this is the conclusion of it. And Jack has become a dragon during recent issues, Jack of Fables. And it's going to be a conclusion of all that. It's going to be 40 pages long, and it's going to be kind of in coup de grace for that particular book. They talked about Cinderella, Fables Forever. Chris Robertson of iZombie has been writing that. It's the second mini. And he said if you're not reading any of the Cinderella minis, which I am. I read the first one, really enjoyed it. I'm following this. Looks like a party blonde, but really is James Bond of the Fables universe.
Oh, nice.
So it's a cool story like that. And Cinderella in this one is going to come up against her Moriarty. So it's kind of a cool one for people that are following that book. So it was a cool panel, and they did a lot of Q&A afterwards, but I really enjoyed that panel. And
I think about it, and I want to pick up the trades on the Fables, and I have a couple of the trades, and then I get behind on my other reading, so I can't read it. And it's definitely Fables, the Cinderella, all of that. I'm exploring slowly through the trades, and it's something that I'm enjoying reading. It's a nice. We've thrown out Palette Cleanser many times. That fits it. Jack of Fables, he's another one. I shifted over to trades on him, and I'm enjoying those stories. So I like seeing and hearing about some of these stuff, knowing stuff that I'm going to probably pick up down the road.
It's funny. All of my Vertigo titles that I shifted over to trade, I've shifted back to floppies. I still stockpiling because I enjoy reading the arcs together, but I am so worried with cancellations recently that if I don't have them in the issue format, that I'm going to lose them because I'm digging these books so much. Over at the DC Nation panel, we didn't really talk about the Friday night panel, and I went to the DC Nation panel, and there was this funny bit in the beginning where, did I forget anybody? Dan DiDio shouted that out because he was going through a list of him, Bob Wayne, Paul Cornell, Scott Snyder, Gail Simone, Bill Willingham, Gene High. And when he said, did I forget anybody, some kid raises his hand in the audience, and he goes, oh, I forgot you. Who are you? And he said, my name is George. So he called him up on the panel. They had him answering questions.
Nice. I love when they do that kind of stuff and they pull somebody up. It's a fun thing.
If you go to a convention where they have the DC Nation panel and another DC Universe panel the next day, typically the Friday night panel or the first day panel, the DC Nation panel, a little bit more relaxed, a lot more fun. That was what that was focused on. I will say one of the things I really was upset about with a certain fan at that panel, he shouted out asking questions. He first thing he yells out to Dan DiDio is, so you going to co-sign my loan so I can pay for Flashpoint? And, I have no problem at all with somebody asking the question, why are you releasing so many Flashpoint titles or things like that? But do it respectfully, at least. If you're at a con, respect the fact that these people came here to connect with you. They are trying to... it was disrespectful. That's the problem I had. It wasn't the question. You're allowed to ask that. Ask anything you want. That's what they put the mic up there for. But whether it's a negative question or a positive question, respect the fact that these people are putting themselves out there for you. So I didn't... There was two panels I was at where there were questions thrown out like that. Not everybody. I'm talking about isolated incidents. So most people were very cool when they were there. But when I was watching, I'm like, really, this is how you're going to ask that question? Ask it a nice way, and just you're still going to get the answer you're looking for. So he kept going on and on with that. But finally, what Dan DiDio said was, he said, look. He said, first of all, the Flashpoint mini can be read independently. It's a story with a great beginning, middle, and ending. You're going to know everything that happened from Flashpoint from that. He said, what we've crafted here is a huge Elseworld-style universe, and these other minis are designed to flesh that out, to expand it, to show you the things that you're not going to see in the Flashpoint mini that you're probably curious about. What are their lives like, and all those type of things. And that's really, he said, we are a comic company in the business of putting out quality entertainment. There is a business end of it, and that's what he's trying to say. And when we have an opportunity with a series like this, where there's going to be excitement to read more and to see more, he said, why wouldn't we publish that? And I don't know why fans think that's such a dirty thing. I like that they're giving fans, and this is where I think they're showing respect to the fans, and not everyone might agree with this. Put out the miniseries in a way where fans can read it independently, so those on a budget don't have to get killed. So that addresses the guy's question, saying, hey, you don't have to take out a loan for it. If you can only afford the mini, read the mini, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be involved in it. You can talk with your friends about the story and still be involved. And I thought that was a cool answer.
Azzarello handled that question a little bit differently at my panel. He gave the answer, well, you don't have to order. It's not being crafted where you have to, like this goes in the hair. You don't have to get them all. You're an idiot if you don't, but you don't have to. Everyone was laughing on that one. That was a howling laughter. And again, same kind of thought process behind it. And I like the fact that they're crafting this way and they know what they're doing, so you don't have to get them all. And really looking forward to this.
I loved they were talking about Action Comics, how it's hitting issue number 900. And they were talking about the proud, rich history. This is a book that's been published consistently since 1938. And Superman's going to be coming in there. The Lex Luthor story is coming to a conclusion in there. Lots of backups. David Goyer, Damon Lindelof are going to be in this. So it's 2 months it's coming out. And this is going to be the wrap-up of Reign of Doomsday.
Yeah, Reign
of
Doomsday.
Robo Lois is awesome was thrown out there. And there was some implication that she is going to be appearing post this in some level.
I'm glad, because I like Robo Lois. And it's kind of curious to see what she's going to do after this. If she's still going to be around Lex, is she going to be independent of herself? It'd be kind of interesting to see Robo Lois versus regular Lois and how that would play out, and just Superman reaction to Robo Lois.
Yeah, which is something that they talked about the Batman books a little bit, and what's going on in the directions there. And they said there's a lot of things that they can't say at the moment because of things like Flashpoint. One of the things that in one of the panels I was at that Tony Daniel was talking about, characters like the Riddler and Two-Face are going to be making an appearance. He said there's a lot of secret surprises and things, though, that he said I don't want to tell you right now because it'll ruin the story for you. But he just said I've got a lot planned for it. One thing I liked, he talked about what it took for him to get on Batman and what's it like being in this role. He said when I first started at DC, he said I worked on Teen Titans, and he said I felt that was my chance to kind of hone my craft, to get to the level. He said one of my goals was to get on Batman as an artist, but he said that I didn't feel I was ready yet when I first started at DC, and that was something that I worked on, which I thought was kind of cool to hear him say that. The panels this weekend have all been really great, though. I've been enjoying them.
And they've been very respectful and just of the product itself. And you can tell these are creators who it's a passion for it. It's a respect, again, I'm going to throw out, but because these were fans of the medium before they became professionals, and they don't want to step on what's done in the past. It's use it, elevate it, heighten it, remember it. And there's definitely some long-term plans being laid out. Looking forward to seeing where this goes.
And they were saying things like, with Flashpoint, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
They said that where this is going to go and all that. And he said that we deliberately can't tell you because we don't want to ruin it for you. But that was one of the interesting things about this one. Because of Flashpoint, it wasn't so much news as getting feedback from the fans, connecting with the fans. Every panel I was at, there was that consistent. There was always a Q&A session. There was always an opportunity for fans. And they didn't dodge any questions. And like I said, my only gripe with any question that was asked there was twice at two different separate panels where I thought the questions were asked in a way that were disrespectful. Not the questions, it was the way they were presented that's disrespectful. And that's something where I was like, really? This is what you're going to do when these people are coming here to, ask the question, get your answer, but don't do it that way.
Yeah. And I'm actually glad I didn't have a lot of that going on with me, where it was, there was some people who weren't happy with stuff, but it was, an understanding of these are one people, so you don't need to be mean to them. And just ask what you want to know, and they'll tell you. And if they can't tell you, they give you a clever, maybe, I don't know, we'll look into that. And one of the things they did talk about that I was really glad to see that they're looking into and trying to figure out how they're going to do it is some of the McDuffie work. Because someone asked them about, are you going to start wrapping up some of this stuff that's never been collected? And they're like, we're looking at all this stuff. We want to present it. We don't know whether it'll be in a collected trade. Maybe it'll be in those DC Presents series, or they're looking into that. So there's definitely going to be something to honor the man, and I'm glad for that.
I am too. I'm very interested in that, so I'm glad they were addressing that. Speaking of collecting things, they did one of the panels that was brought up by a person who collects trades. She was saying, why do trades take so much longer to come out? Why aren't they coming out quicker? Why the hardcovers first? And Dan DiDio answered, he was talking about cycles. He said, our focus is always on the periodicals because he said, I'm a big believer in the monthly delivery system. That's what comics are all about. It's building suspense, building excitement each and every month. But he said when it comes into collections, there's different cycles. He said the hardcovers release first. So he said if you're collecting the hardcovers, you're going to expect those released in a certain sequential cycle as time goes on. The trade's the same thing. The trades come later, though. He said we release the hardcover first, then we go to the trade. So he said, if you're waiting on, like, the example, the trade of Blackest Night, he said when that's released, then you'll see following after that the trades of Brightest Day. So he said you're behind, and he said that's just, but you're on a certain cycle. And he said that cycle will continue, and those will be released. So, it made a lot good.
Oh, definitely.
So overall, just some great panels and a lot of fun.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
I want to quickly remind everyone about our 5-year anniversary contest. We still have time. It ends March 31st. For details, go to ragingbullets.com. We'd love to participate and have a chance to win some free trades. Very cool. Our sponsors this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. We want to thank them for supporting us the past few years on Raging Bullets. We really love DCB Service. They're your comic book pre-order source. InStockTrades.com is your source for your collected edition and hardcover needs. So please make sure to check out InStockTrades.com. Jim, our next episode is going to feature more from C2E2. And we're also, hopefully, on Wednesday going to have something special to release to everybody. It'll be Wednesday evening if it comes about. I'm not trying to be deliberately vague about it. You know what it is. But I want to make sure that we have a chance to record it first. So, listeners, please check the website to see if that comes about. And we might have a special surprise for you on Wednesday. I want to thank once again everybody that we've seen at C2E2. This convention has been absolutely a pure pleasure, and you guys are a huge part of that. And I want to thank everyone for supporting the show for the last 5 years, because on Wednesday it's going to be our 5-year anniversary. It's March 23rd of this podcast. So we've been doing this for 5 years, and we couldn't have done it without you. All your support, your comments, participation in the forums, Facebooks, anywhere that you've participated. Thank you for shouting us out on websites, letting other podcasts know about us, things like that. Our listenership has grown due to you, and we appreciate all the support you've given our podcast in the last 5 years. Like I said, this is a community aspect, and we're proud to have put this show together. And Jim, it's been a pleasure working with you for the last 5 years.
Definitely. This has been an amazingly wonderful experience, and I just got to say thank you. Thank you to everybody, you especially, because you brought me back into comics, and just I could not imagine my life, what it would be like if I didn't have this enjoyment. Everybody I've met throughout this show has just been, it's been an amazing experience, and there's a lot of times where I don't really, let myself emotionally get out there, and I don't just, I'm a little bit sometimes more closed off, so I don't know if people realize just how important the community has been to me, and I just really wanted to take a moment to get serious and say thank you very much.
I want to thank the comic book community, too, particularly comic book creators who've come on the show, comic book creators who've given us comments about the show and things like that. I've really been overwhelmed by the support there. I want to thank the silent listeners. A lot of times there's a lot of listeners on the show who just, like readers of comics who don't participate in forums and send in letters and things. People just do enjoy reading the product, enjoy listening to podcasts, and just kind of keep to themselves. We appreciate all of you, the time you take to download our show and to bring us into your life. If we've never communicated before, I just want to let you know that even though we've never had those actual conversations, we appreciate the time you take to download and listen to this podcast, because it does mean a lot to us to know there's an audience base out there that enjoys what we do. And thank you again for 5 years of support. We will see everyone next week.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I really hate to leave you, but I really must say good night, sweetheart. Good night. Bye.
Oh, God.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. are closing in, be they Thenin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you